You were in the LAPD for 28 years?
I have faced down monsters, the worst, evilest, most violent people in society, and I'm here to still talk about it.
Not only did you get 3 Medals of Valor, there's a news story on you about saving a choking person in a restaurant, and you were in uniform when you did it.
I went over and I gave him the Heimlich maneuver, which is half a suplex, right?
Yeah.
So I body locked him, I dropped my knuckle into him, and basically I gave him the Heimlich maneuver, and he spit out what he had. Unless you look the devil in the eye, and you've been in there with life and death, bullets flying, people talk about fight, flight, and terror. You cannot prepare for terror. You have to be mentally prepared, but there's no way you can physically prepare. I'll give you an example. The story I'm gonna tell you right now, so I've been in terror 2 times in my career. This was one of them.
I had read somewhere that you helped Eddie develop some of his wrestling transitions as he was building 10th Planet.
I was their first wrestling transitions coach. So I like to say, man, I was out there with Eddie, his first paid instructor in 10th Planet. But it, went another different direction. It was funny because people used to come in there and do challenges. If you look at the picture you put on the last podcast, I'm on the podium. That's Dan Gable when he was 36. The Dan Gable standing next to me. In the spring and summer of 1986, I wrestled with Dan Gable on the mat almost every day in that group. I've met the most amazing people at Jean Jacques Academy, the most amazing human beings and quality people over the course of over 25 years. I have never, ever gotten Jean Jacques, and I've tried. And so sometimes you say to yourself, if I got close to Sensei where I was finishing him, would I just stop not do that? Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, I've tried, but I've never, ever even been close where I had him in a jeopardy position. And let me tell you, man, I'm not like a paper tiger, I'm a beast, but I have never, ever gotten close to getting him. And this is over a 25-year period.
As you said, BJJ is sort of getting more watered down. Is there anything being taught that's kind of making you cringe?
What I see is...
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another podcast. Today, my guest is one of our former guests, Mark Mireles. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. Mark, I was going to give the audience a list of your accolades, but you have so many of them. Let me have you do that. Let's start real quick with who the heck are you? You've been on the channel, so folks already know you, but let's just give a quick list of your martial arts history.
Well, I grew up in the Bay Area in Redwood City, which is a suburb of San Francisco. And so I got involved in martial arts when I was 10 years old. I wanted to do karate, but my parents, not having a lot of money, decided to sign me up for judo at the YMCA. But I really wanted to do karate. And they were like, hey, we're going to do this. And they wear white gis over here. So I did it. And I say all these years later, I'm like, man, my parents were pretty smart because I continue to do judo. Next year, 2027 will be my 50th year of training in all grappling arts. And I'll tell you a funny story. I walked into an MMA academy. I had to drop something off for one of Jean Jacques Machado's black belts yesterday. So I called ahead and whatnot. And so I walked in, I was dressed like this. I was coming from work. I work in corporate security. And I walked in and the guy says, hey, how's it going? Do you train? Oh, I see your ears. You must train. And I said, yes, I do. And he was like, oh, he's trying to pitch me, feel me out. He's going to sign me up. And he goes, how long have you been training for? And this is very common. I said, since 1977. And he said, he looked, he looked, he didn't even know what to say. He just stopped talking. And I'm not exaggerating. He just kind of walked away, you know what I mean? And so I get that a lot because the reason why I tell that story of judo and starting in 1977 when I was 10 years old, because I was doing this stuff way before it was cool. And now I look back at my parents and I say, how smart were they? Because wrestling, ended up wrestling in high school, wrestling in college, wrestling in the USA Wrestling, Greco-Roman and freestyle program, wrestling in a 1988 regional Olympic trials, wrestling for the Los Angeles Police Department all over the world with their wrestling team. And it's really been quite a journey. So I started, wrestling, and in college I was not the most successful catch wrestler. You'd have to understand like the technicalness of catches, can, or collegiate wrestling. And then circumstances led me to join the Marine Corps. I did a stint in the Marine Corps, and then I ended up coming on LAPD. And so the whole time, though, in the beginning, definitely I was a sports guy. Both judo and wrestling are Olympic sports. And my goal was to wrestle in the Olympics. I fell way short of that. I think I told you if there would have been a significant catastrophe, like 30 times with different teams on the plane, maybe 31 catastrophes, I might, and I want to emphasize, might have made it to the Olympics, because there were a lot of people ahead of me. But I am proud that I made it into the regional process, and I wrestled in my time period literally the best guys that were out there. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't beat one of them, but I wrestled Dave Schultz, I wrestled Kenny Monday, I wrestled the top Greco people. And in 1997, well, I had 10 years on the police department. I was kind of doing some police stuff. Someone talked me into wrestling in the California State Greco-Roman Championships. And I think I forwarded you a picture before. I have a picture of myself, of the great Dan Henderson and myself wrestling in the championship. And we took a picture afterwards. And what's significant about that picture is it was later that year where Dan Henderson began to professionally fight. And
wow.
and so that was after, because I think he wrestled in two Olympics, and this was right before, like, he was going to wrestle in the Olympics again. If it was 1997, or maybe he was finished, because maybe I'd have to think back when I know he wrestled in the 96 Olympics, because he was like very young, and it was one before or after. I can't remember as I sit here, but right before his MMA career, which was mainly in Pride, we wrestled. And I'm going to tell you something, I didn't win that one either. And so, I was happy. I was game, like when you have a full-time job, especially from the 80s, I'm a little bit older than Dan Henderson. When I stepped away from wrestling, when you're working and training, like, you maybe you're going to do the police Olympics, because hopefully those guys are working and training. And I got opportunities with LAPD, where I spent 28 years on the job, wrestling all over the world, in police and fire games, the world games, the international games, the state, local games. And it was a lot of fun, you know what I mean? Because outside of some maybe Eastern European countries and Middle East countries, they do run ringers there. They bring in professional athletes. But I mean, I got to go to Spain, and I was just talking to one of my acquaintances from the police department, Pat Higa, who was a 4-time Hawaii state champion. Then we're talking yesterday, and I said, when we wrestled in our first police and fire games in Indianapolis, and then 2 years later in 2003 in Barcelona, Spain, that's 25 years ago, man. Where did that time go?
Yeah.
And so we got to do a lot of fun stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my background. Yeah, I grew up in the Bay Area,
and also you've got associations with, a big association with Jean Jacques Machado, right? And you are a 2019 excuse me, what's the terminology here? I'm having a brain fart. The 2019.
I can't even pronounce it too, but I was the no-gi masters level age group world champion as a heavyweight. I was a little bit heavier back then, but I entered the tournament, and that's I'm not a BJJ competitor per se. I did a lot of wrestling and a lot of judo, but I was like, hey, I'm getting older. I think I want to do this. And what was crazy in this tournament was a lot of guys I had they have converted to jiu-jitsu because it's out there.
Yeah.
So there were guys that I had grown up with that were all Americans, and they had very successful wrestling careers. And these were guys like I looked up to. And we were all in the tournament, and I saw a bunch of guys that I hadn't seen in years and years. And by the second, third, or fourth round, they were all out, and it was just me to the finals. And I ended up winning the tournament. I'm probably in the, Jean Jacques Machado and his organization here in the United States is pretty famous, but I'm probably one of 3, 4, maybe 5 people of gi and no gi ever to win a world championship.
Wow,
so like
wild.
I'm very proud and happy to do that because you think like, hey, I can enter these tournaments every year, but a lot of things when you're a professional working, a lot of things have to line up, managing family and whatnot. So then right after that was the pandemic. And so, then, all the things that happened with that. So I'm glad I did it when I did it, because it seems like, I don't know what the future holds, but I may not ever have the opportunity to do that again.
Well, you never know. I mean, you also are the owner, and you are still building out your gym in Simi Valley, right? The house of Jean Jacques Machado, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How's that going?
Oh, it's going great. So I started out at with a Machado Academy, and I'd never been a gym owner. It was Big John McCarthy, and when he was had his heyday in the UFC, that he invited me to come teach as his academy when he opened his academy about 20 years ago. And I had done coaching, but that was my first time working within like a MMA environment and an actual gym where you're not working with scholarship athletes or guys like in the Olympic pipeline. I was working with people off the street. And so it was a mega gym. And you know what I realized? I didn't want to be part of a mega gym. So I was there for about 7 or 8 years. But the whole time I was training with Jean Jacques at headquarters. And that gym or the academy, Jean Jacques, it's a smaller environment than a mega gym. You think mega gyms like Las Vegas, these huge gyms, they're running a bunch of different programs. That's good if that's your thing. I'm more of a specialist. So as I came closer to retiring from LAPD, I went to Jean Jacques and I said, hey, I'm really interested in, starting an affiliate school. And it's in Simi Valley. I don't live in Simi Valley, but Simi Valley is cop land. It's public safety land. I knew that starting an academy there, I had a baseline, not only to work with public safety people, but their children. And so it was important to me because I wanted to be a person that could give back and not just, training develops a person holistically. So not everyone has to compete, but when you're coming to martial arts class, you're going to get something out of it. I always tell people, we're going professional. You're probably not going professional as a fighter, but you're going to go professional in life and something. Yeah. And so I've used martial arts as a platform, and all the years I've been teaching. Some kids today, they're doing really incredible things, but they started as a white belt in my program. And I run a great program. It's not easy, but it is scalable if you put the work in. And that's probably coming from the wrestling work ethic. Wrestlers are very hard working athletes. And I transitioned that into jiu-jitsu. So my jiu-jitsu program is a combination of classical Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which comes from judo, and then wrestling. Those things, they're like cousins, and you got to learn how to blend them. Sometimes I talk to pure wrestlers from the Midwest, and they're like, oh, like jiu-jitsu, they're like down against it, and it's like some sort of competition. But I never saw it that way because as a kid, I had done judo, I had done freestyle wrestling, Greco-Roman, and because of the judo, I was one of the people in the 80s actually doing sambo. And I went in 1985 to the junior nationals in Iowa City, and I ended up doing very well there. I'd done very well in the state freestyle tournament. I had a very weak senior year, but a good winning record, and it was the opportunity after I got done with that and had met some people that the University of Iowa, when they were on top national wrestling champions, I had an opportunity to walk on. If you look at the picture you put on the last podcast, I'm on the podium. That's Dan Gable when he was 36, the Dan Gable standing next to me.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'd met some people there. They were the owners of Hawkeye Food or in that grocery business. And they were like, hey, they're looking for guys, they're not going to give you a scholarship, but you can come to school here and you can, they need like workout partners. They had like some non-commits or whatever. 30 days later, I was a student at the University of Iowa, and I was in the wrestling room with like the greats. And it was a tremendous experience, once in a lifetime experience that everybody during that time period would have coveted. This would be like in today's times, going to Penn State and getting an opportunity through the back door to walk on there. And that's what happened to me. And it was very transformational in my life because you were around the very best of the best and kids that were very, very talented, but very hardworking. And I always share that in the summer when they ran the wrestling camps and whatnot, because I was about Dan Gable's side, there was a guy named Harlan Kistler. He's one of the Kistler brothers. They were all Americans. His brother Marty was a sensational college wrestler. And because I was from California, they took me under their wing. In the summers when they ran the Iowa intensive camp, it was myself, Harlan, who was like midway through law school, but still working out, and Dan Gable in a top bottom out 3 group. In the spring and summer of 1986, I wrestled with Dan Gable on the mat almost every day in that group.
Wow.
And so today, it's absolutely incredible to look back. Dan Gable's an iconic name. And, I was out there taking advice and whatnot. I wasn't a star wrestler, but I was in the program. And let me share something with you. I did a little piece about Lee Allen, and we talked about Lee Allen being my coach. This is how long I've been around in the game. When I went to the University of Iowa, Dan Gable asked me, he said, "Oh, you're Lee Allen's pupil." And I said, "Yes, I am." And he's like, "How is Lee?" And I said, like, he's great or whatever. Lee Allen to Dan Gable was a heroic figure of people that they looked up to because Dan Gable wanted to be an Olympian. So if like they're right now in the process of making like some major motion pictures about like some of these figures. Like Lee Allen isn't a household name because he was around, in the 50s and 60s. But Dan Gable, who was 1972 Olympic champion, he looked up to Lee Allen, right? And just, if you don't know the story of Dan Gable, man, it is the most incredible story. They're making a major motion picture. I encourage you to read or watch information about Dan Gable because you're going to talk about somebody with a strong constitution. And we all knew this story, but nobody ever talked about it. But this is why Dan Gable was so respected. Dan Gable in his like freshman year, like he was playing different sports, but he was wrestling and he was obviously very tough in Waterloo, Iowa. His family went on vacation and his sister ended up staying behind. A neighbor raped and murdered his sister. And
wow.
The way the story goes, that he came home and, obviously the family was very upset. And he loved his sister. And if you look at pieces that he's wrote and talked about, he loved his sister very much. And his parents at some point, it was something like, we're going to move or like, it's so painful, obviously, that they were going to relocate or at least move from that house. And Dan Gable said, "No, I'm going to move into her bedroom." And as an expiring piece, he moved into her bedroom and he trained. And the legends of Dan Gable's training are epic. Dan Gable then went on to one of the most storybook college careers and then lost his last match. Then he set his eyes on the Olympics. He won the world championship at the press conference, as the story goes, they were like, "Hey, where's Dan Gable? He's already training for the Olympics." The Soviets said at that time, "We will beat a man. We will build a man to defeat Dan Gable." He went to the Olympics in 1972, and he not only defeated everybody, he didn't give up a point. And afterwards, in his book, he discusses that he was upset with himself because in the last match, he knew he was going to win, and he took his foot off the gas and just, instead of attempting to work the guy over and pin him, he basically let him go, knowing he was dominating and controlling the match, and took his foot off the gas. And that's something in the Iowa program back then they didn't do. They had sayings like, continue to score points, continue to attack. And I did not excel to the greatness of the other wrestlers in that program because they were just better wrestlers and better athletes than me. But I got the opportunity to be there. But I practiced everything in my life going forward that I learned in that room into the Marine Corps. And I was always on the attack, attacking life, attacking problems, continuing to score points in life, no backward steps in life. In the wrestling room there, you did not take a backward step. The final thing about Gable is everybody knew this about this man. Everybody knew the story. Nobody talked about it. It was a giant white elephant in the room. And when you're an 18-year-old kid and here's an iconic figure, you're like, I want to be just like this guy. Mm-hmm. I wasn't that guy in that stream, in that vein. I was a Dan Gable in policing, for sure. And I left the LAPD when I retired with no regrets. I left there as one of the greatest police careers in the history of policing. And I say that humbly because in a democratic society where you will raise your right hand and take an oath, it's the people that elect you to those to that position. You know what? The people got their money's worth out of me, but I was happy to do it. And I feel so grateful today after retirement to still be able to serve. I'm up here. This is the heart of, I'm sitting in a boardroom of the heart where the Palisades fire started. Mm-hmm. My people from my security team were here at Ground Zero the day the Palisades fires broke out. My people here saved not only about 20 lives the first day, they're responsible for saving hundreds of lives in evacuations. And man, if you were here, the fire here burned so incredibly. The people that I supervise were complete heroes, and not only saved a large portion, but they embedded with the fire department, with private fire and whatnot. And I'm so proud of them. Not only in this, we did the Santa Barbara fires before, and other private security issues, that you're going to deal with in corporate security. So I continue to serve. I'm not a police officer. I don't work in the public. I work in the private now. But all I did is transition. I'm a servant.
And for those who don't know, Mark is a 3-time Medal of Valor recipient. You were in the LAPD for 28 years?
I was a sworn uniform police officer working the streets for 28 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are actually prolific. In some of my research on you, not only did you get 3 Medals of Valor, there's a news story on you about saving a choking person in a restaurant, and you were in uniform when you did it.
Yeah, so that was a crazy story. So we went to a well-known restaurant, it's called California Chicken Cafe or something. It's in the Woodland Hills area where I worked. I worked Topanga Division where I was a field training officer. And so I walked into the restaurant and we ordered, and then I was walking away. This is on video. The video's out there on, various news sites. I was on Police One for a long time. It was a while ago. And then I walked over to the soda fountain and I looked at her eyes and this lady's trying to like deal with her husband. And I realized he's choking. So I went over and I gave him the Heimlich maneuver, which is half a suplex, right?
Yeah.
So I body locked him. I dropped my knuckle into him, and basically I gave him the Heimlich maneuver, and he spit out what he had. The fire department came in, but the whole thing was on video. So, it was crazy, And I think I told you another story, man. That was a crazy story, and the Medal of Valor stories are. I was involved in some very historical things. The last incident I was involved in, I want to tell how stories come full circle. So I was involved as a patrol officer for the very tragic murder of the first SWAT officer ever killed in a line of duty with the Los Angeles Police Department, Randal Simmons, where he and his partner, Veenstra, were in an immediate action rapid deployment, breached the front door with a SWAT team, and they were both shot in the face. And so how this went down was I had just left a specialized unit, and I remember the night I had trained at Jean Jacques. Jean Jacques Machado's academy was about half a mile from the West Valley at the time police station. So I came in, and they had put us on like the special detail for like violence response. And it was me and this girl that I knew for many, many years, Bonnie Lehigh, just an amazing police officer. And so we saddled up. We didn't have a roll call. We just got like our car, and we're going to be out there for 12 hours, but it was like a 8 to 8 shift. And, but we weren't really being supervised like a watch. We're there to kind of do our own thing in aggressive anti-violence policing. So as soon as we pulled out of the station, I heard a very calm officer asking for a backup about half a mile from the station. So we drove over there, and I see this officer, Brown, and I say to him, hey, what's going on? He goes, hey, this guy came up to his window. We got this call here. It was an open 911 line. And we got here and knocked on the door. And the guy was at his window. And he said, hey, I just killed my whole family. And I go, well, did he kill his family? Or like, what do you think? He goes, I don't know. Like he won't come out or whatever. I said, well, Brown, we got to treat it like he killed his family until we vet this out. So we called in additional resources. We circled the house outside a place called Wellbe Way in Oakdale. That'll be important later. So we go to, we call in, sergeant shows up. There's a lot of officers now in the area, and we set up a perimeter around the house. So I get on the PA, and the station is like getting on the call with communications. They're trying to call into the house. So I have the guy now coming to the window, and I'm on the PA. I'm like, hey, we need to make sure everyone's inside of the house. Time's urgent and whatnot. But we need you to come into the house, come outside. We need to make sure we're like this. Now this is going on for some time. There's calls going in. They get him on the phone from the station. And they basically, he says, I'm not coming out. You're going to have to come get me. They tried to call the SWAT team, but they didn't feel, because there had been no weapon seen and no one really verified in the house. At first, they were like, it doesn't meet the criteria. So we formed up a search team. We went to the next house. And so there were maybe 8 of us and a sergeant. And I said, hey, listen, we don't know what we're walking in here to. So when we go up and kick the door, let's not rush in. Let's hang back and see if fire draws, if this guy has a gun or whatnot, and then we'll make a determination from there. I remember just saying this. And what's crazy is this is all captured from an early surveillance type Ring doorbell of our little thing. So we step off to approach the house, And all of a sudden on the radio, they go, hey, everyone stand down. SWAT's coming. So some guys come in. They're coming in like from home and whatnot. It's like midnight. They're coming in and they're dropping into their gear and whatnot. But it's a small version. And there's only like maybe like 13 of them, 12 or 13, and they drop in and they inform us. One of the guys that was there, he was a guy he did his probation in Foothill like years before. He's like a huge karate guy. And he was like, yeah, here's our boss. We believe there's a hostage in the house. The station was on the phone with them. They have someone in there and like we're going to do an immediate action racket deployment, a hostage rescue. So now they're laying down their plans. And so they say, you 5 officers, who's the primary? I said, Brown's the primary, but I've been communicating with the guy at the window. They go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You guys go behind that car there and wait for our command. You're an arrest team. If we need you, we're going to call you. And so they go do their thing. So they approach the front of the house. It's dark and it's quiet in a residential neighborhood. And they approach the front of the house and they rake a window, some flashbangs go off and they hit the door. And we're sitting there. And I think this next part is really important for like martial arts capacity. And I'll tell you for a couple of reasons, because when something goes really bad, you have to be mentally ready way in advance. And the other thing is people talk about fight, flight, and terror. You cannot prepare for terror. You have to be mentally prepared, but there's no way you can physically prepare. And I'll give you an example. The story I'm going to tell you right now, the way private trainers try to train for it is by running wind sprints and picking up a gun and whatnot. The physiological feeling is not the same. Right. When you're in terror, your body shuts down. I've been in terror 2 times in my career. This was one of them. So the SWAT team goes up, stuff's blowing up. They go through the door. There's some shots fired, bang, bang, bang. And then all of a sudden, there's some automatic weapon fire. Brrr, bam, bam, bam. And I look over, I go, hey, like, man, they must have shot and killed that guy. And then I couldn't believe my eyes, literally. I'm watching. And so when there's gunfire in the middle of the night, there's like a smoke and a certain smell, like an acid smell. There's a name for it. I can't recall right now. But the smoke from the flashbangs and the gunfire and the automatic weapon fire, it permeated like the air, and then the door was smoky, and I was trying to figure it out with my eyes, and I couldn't believe what I saw, and that was one officer doing the classical rescue body drag, and then another officer coming through doing a classical officer body drag. And I looked, and they went off, when they came out, like we got up to look, and I don't know what frequency they were on or whatnot, but at first, like I couldn't believe it. And I was like, I stood up and I tried to move, but what I was saying in my head is like, the people they're bringing out, it's not the bad guy. Those guys are wearing the same uniform we're wearing. Like, that's our guys. Something happened. Our guys are down. And they came out, and I walked up, like we came up to the front to see if we could help. And they put Simmons down on his back. And the officer that put him down said, we don't know where the suspect's at. And I went down to the only thing I could do is to go down and give Simmons CPR. And I went down, there was a bullet hole in his face. He was already gone. And I tried to will myself to move, and I couldn't move. I was like, I was like, oh my God. And I looked over and Beanstra was drowning on his own blood. He'd been shot in the face and the jaw. And he was drowning on his blood. And I couldn't move. And I said to myself, you have to will yourself to move because these guys need help. Something bad just happened. So I got on the radio. I was like, hey, officer needs help. We need like 2 rescues right now. Officer down, officer down. So they had set up, when the SWAT team came, a force protection. So there were ambulances down the street. Myself and another officer grabbed Simmons. Somebody else grabbed Beanstra. We took them to the ambulances and put them down on the gurneys. They have specially trained like paramedics or like tactical paramedics. They took them, boom, they're out. Now we're down on the street. I took a position behind a wheel well of a car. And I remember the SWAT officer goes, hey, we don't know where the suspect's at right now. Don't start shooting. Let us handle that. Then another team leader came to me and they said, hey, there's someone down in the house. I'm going to take you in. You're going to grab this down person. He may or may not be alive. You've got to, you're going to take him out with a body drag. We're going to go into the house. So myself and my partner went into the house and we rescued this down guy who turned out to be the father. And we took him out to the front lawn. And if you look at the video and whatnot, he's the guy laying in the front yard. And then other like officers came in and other SWAT people came in to the position, and they ended up like pulling us out. And later there was a hostage in there. They hit the house with a bear cat on the side. She escaped. My friend that works SWAT said the suspect was chasing her out of the house like a green-eyed ghoul, and they eventually burned the house down due to some munitions they were using or whatnot. And then the suspect was ultimately burned or shot and killed. And in that, he had ended up killing 3 of his family members. He himself was killed, and the officer was killed. So there was 5 people like killed that night in that incident. And that's the first story. And you know what? Afterwards, there was a lot of finger pointing, a lot of survivor guilt. I heard stories like I didn't know any of these SWAT guys except for one guy, and my classmate had showed up. And as I was leaving the zone where it occurred, I saw my classmate, and we like locked eyes, and like we went. And my captain later told me, he goes, man, this is going to be bad, man. When you lose somebody like this, and there's going to be a lot of finger pointing, a lot. And it was bad. It was bad. And I remember, they send you at that point to the psychologist, like everybody goes. And I didn't know Randy Simmons, I mean, by all accounts, he was an amazing human being, a great guy, like an athlete's athlete, but I didn't know him. But everywhere I would go, they would have his picture memorialized in the front of the station. They named the park next to West Valley Park, Randy said, but his face was up there. It was all over, all over for a long time. And although he wasn't a personal friend of mine or even an acquaintance, I was the last person to see him on the ground, and I saw a bullet hole in his face. And so it wasn't the picture up there. And so the department psychologist finally gave me, I wasn't like, disturbed where I couldn't work, but I'm a human being, you know what I mean? So everyone's, in this type of situation, you're human, man. If you don't feel bad, right, there's something wrong with you, right? They have labels for that, right? Psycho, socio. Anyway, long story short, the department psychologist said something very profound to me. And he said, hey, the reason why that picture bothers you is because you want something that day to change that is never going to change. But it's not your fault either. You guys went out there that day and you did the best job that you can with the facts that you knew. And you guys did what you had to do, and it didn't turn out bad. You'll never be able to go back and change that day. And after that, I was okay with that. And that's the advice that I give people that have been through horrific events. But now you want to hear You want to hear the best story about this?
Okay.
All right. So you never get a redemption on something like that. So 10 years later, right before I retired, and this is why I retired, because you're not going to get a victory like this, man, to walk away from something that bad. 10 years later, I'm working with this guy. He's a little, like, they have me watching him. He did some aggressive things. He's a little wild. He had told me that when he was in the Marine Corps Reserve, when they invaded Iraq, his CO pulled him aside and told him, hey, when we get across the border, you just can't start shooting people. And I go, did they say that to anybody else? No, they only said it to me. I'm like, well, you know, dude, they got me watching you, bro, because you have some issues, right? So we were out and we met up with some people that were eating, and it was real busy on a Saturday night. It was super busy. And we're dropping calls and we're talking to these people that we knew from out of town. I go, hey man, we're gonna have to pick up a call. All of a sudden, a domestic violence code 3 call comes. So it's gonna be a light and sirens call. And I said, man, we gotta buy that call, man. We're dropping calls. Hey, we'll see you later. Like, and so the person said to me right before we walked away, they go, hey, you guys be safe, don't kill anybody. And so like we're walking back to the police car. And so now we're driving and we're on Van Owen. And I go, hey man, we're going to turn on Oakdale. We're going to go north or south. We're going to go north. And so as we get there, before like we're driving, hey, this is over, right? I go, I said, man, Randy Simmons got killed 2 blocks just south of here as we're approaching. I go, it's crazy because like this is just north of it. So as we're approaching, there's all these different frequencies on the police radio. And one of the EBO, emergency broadcast operator, gets on and she says, hey, there's a man on the street with a rifle. There's a man on the street. There's a shot fired on the street. And then it cuts off and then all the busy radios comes up. Well, like I got like almost 28 years into this game. I can do this radio thing. It's very hard to do in the beginning when you're a rookie because it's like being dropped off in the middle of a busy intersection. I go, hey, hold on. I pulled the car over and I say, hey, listen, on the radio, I go, hey, did you just say there's a man out on the street with a rifle? Did somebody report that on a different frequency? I said, unwind all the frequencies. Is there a man out on the gun on Oakdale? It's like 30 seconds of dead silence. Yeah, there's a man on Oakdale. Shots were fired. So I go, okay. Okay, hey man, we're going in. I go, like, where's the next unit or whatever? They're like 2 blocks out. I said, hey, we're gonna go in. So we pull around the corner, creeping on Oakdale, and this dude pulls up behind me, and it gets out, and it's a guy that I have had some personality with. We haven't talked in like 3 years. We had it out one day in front of the kit room. This is like real police stuff, right? Mm-hmm. We hadn't talked in like 2 years, and I go, hey man, this guy's out here. They say he has a rifle. So we begin up the street, man, and all of a sudden this dude comes out. It's shots fired, and it's a running gun battle on the street. And so there's civilians running around. And so at one point, this guy's running by a fence, and I'm like, man, I could shoot this guy, but like, what if there's somebody over there I can't see? And like, we come out, and man, it's bedlam, man. It's a running gun battle, and it's bedlam. And so I end up taking cover behind a car. The guy's shooting now. And so like the first thing I can get to is the front of a wheel well of a car. And I got down behind the wheel well. And I could hear that like bullets impacting and whatnot. And so the guy I haven't talked to comes up and he like lays down next to me. I'm like, you. And he's like, and so right prior to him coming, I had been so low at that well. I was like, man, my God, like this is scary. So I wasn't in terror then, but I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I've had so many brushes with death on this job. God, if I make it out of this one, I'm retiring. This is it, man. Like if I make it out of this, I may not make it out of this. and I could hear the bullets like skipping, impacting into the car. And I was like, I was like, okay, like I'm going to live for my kids. And so I told this guy's like a crack rifle shot. And he's there with the police rifle. And I was like, hey, listen, I'm going to spot for you. If this guy, where's he at? He went in the house. I go, okay, he's probably reloading or whatever. I said, I'm going to spot. If he comes out with the gun in his hand, I'm going to tell you to shoot him. And you got to shoot him, bro. And he's like, no problem. So I'm like spotting, and he's hiding behind the car. My partner is across the street with a police rifle with another officer. Somebody fall down and breaks their shoulder. As it's going on, some police car like skids. I mean, this is like real stuff, man. You don't see this in the movie. Some guy, like, he doesn't know where he's going. He skids through an intersection. The suspect starts shooting at his police car. He takes off. Some sergeant is like hiding because he doesn't want to come in and get killed. I mean, this is like real cop stuff. But listen, before all that, let me just share one little thing. When I was out on the street, I was like, hey, officer needs help. Officer needs help. You know, and police stations were clearing out to come help us. Everybody dropped everything, you know, and you can hear the sirens of them coming. So anyway, the guy comes out and he's got like a rifle and a pistol, and he comes up, and the officer with me got it up and he fires, boom, boom. And the bullet in the forensics, one of them like went through the guy's arm as he brought the gun up, and the other one hit him in the chest, right? Mm-hmm. So this guy is he's dead, but he doesn't know it. And he stumbles into the house, and everybody's like this. And then he comes out, but he's still alive. And man, it was like ready on the right, ready on the left. It was like an explosion of gunfire on this guy as he still had the guns in his hands. Mm-hmm. But, you know, he was already like shot, you know what I mean? Yeah. My partner like unloaded like the whole rifle. He didn't hit anything. He like unloaded and shot the whole house up. And then anyway, after that, after this guy went down, we tried to save his life, you know what I mean? And he was deceased. But I remember the feeling after that. It's like, yeah, we lived through this. Like you guys, you young guys, I was like, because I was the most senior guy out there. I was like, you guys did a great job, man. You were brave. You did a great job. And it was 2 blocks north of one of the most tragic police incidents. First SWAT officer killed in the line of duty. Lots of sorrow, finger pointing, survivor's guilt. And here we are 10 years later, 2 blocks north of that incident, and we had redeemed ourselves in that incident, redeemed ourselves by, in a very dangerous situation with a totally different heroic outcome. And I said to myself, it's not going to get any better than this. And you lived. I unwound the things I had to do. 2 months later, I was out of the police department.
So that was the incident that said, that's it. Like,
right.
End of story.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in the Simmons incident, myself and my partner were the 2 patrol officers awarded the Medal of Valor. Mm-hmm. Several members of SWAT that made entry, including Simmons was awarded the Medal of Valor for that. And it's like, you don't want a medal for something like that. Like, you know, you don't want it, you know, honor the family and whatnot. I understand like the police department, like they're going to look at an incident and rank awards and whatnot. But trust me, the last thing you want is a Medal of Valor. You know, when I see that medal, like it's not a pleasant feeling. But on the 2 other medals, like I actually saved people's lives. And I had another incident, probably the most bravest incident I was involved in. I didn't receive a Medal of Valor. I received the Police Star, which is right under the Medal of Valor. And it was a very, very dangerous house rescue. So I don't know if you want to hear about that.
Yeah. Okay. I want to hear, you definitely.
So, you know, the other 2 medals of valor, one was a woman that was burning up in a car. She the car flipped off a freeway, took off a telephone pole, and she was entangled in electrical lines. And I ended up saving her through electrical lines. And the fireman was like, "Man, dude, if you would have touched one of those lines, you'd be dead." And I'm like, "Oh, I would have." Oh, well.
You didn't know?
Nobody told me. I didn't know, man. But the wires were like arcing off the ground. But I was like, "Man, this lady's gonna, like, the car's on fire, man. Like, I got to do something." And so I actually have a picture. Somebody found one of our Medal of Valor ceremony, and they brought her and her child to the ceremony. I'll see if I can find that for you.
Yeah.
The other incident was a suicide jumper, and my partner, and a fireman ended up catching this lady jumping off the building. It was horrific, man. But like, we saved her life. She had a very bad counseling session, and she jumped out. That's kind of a drawn out story, but that was the end result. The most craziest story probably of an incident, and they actually told me, "You would have got the Medal of Valor for this, but we already gave you one this year." So the awards were like, "We're not doing that. We'll give them a police star." Now, like, I just like to go to work and chase bad guys. This was just all ancillary stuff that happened. So one night we're at the jail, and we're leaving the jail, and there's a helicopter flying around. And I say, "Hey, the jail at Van Nuys sits up high. And, hey, look, what's that helicopter?" It's like 2 a.m. So we get on the frequency, like, "Hey, airship, like, what do you got?" "Hey, I got a house fire. There's nobody on scene. FD's not on scene, but there's people in the house. Some of them are coming out. It's bad." So I go, "Okay, I'm going to hit the light bar, guide us in." So I hit my light bar, and the airship's like, "Left, right, left, right." Did I ever tell you this story? Did I tell you this story?
I think you
before?
told it at the restaurant, but tell it for the audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. When we ate, we had this story. So we were like, left, right. We end up in front of this house, man. And you can see from the top, it's on Siege Roast in like the Van Nuys area. You can see from the top, man, this is burning down, and it's a bad fire. How it started, I don't know. It's 2 a.m, so people are coming out. So my partner speaks Spanish. It's a predominantly Spanish-speaking neighborhood, but it's a nice big house. And so I say, "Hey, what's going on?" Is someone else? I go, "Yeah, my dad's in the house. My dad's in the house, and like, he won't come out." And so he can't see what's going upstairs, but when we walk in, he's got a garden hose and he's shooting it through the attic. He cannot see the whole top of that. This is not going to work. This is like, obviously. So I tell my partner, I'm like, "Hey, look, did they tell you, were there kids like this? Oh, they think they got all the kids, but like just the dads in here?" So I say, "Okay, go check in the bedrooms and check under the beds, because little kids hide there. So we're going to have one chance at this, and I'll talk to the dad." So I'm like, "Hey, man, drop the garden hose. We got to go." This guy's like, "No, I'm not going to do it. Like, I got to save my house." It's like broken Spanish. I speak broken streets. I'm like, "Hey, man, we got to go." So my partner reappears. He goes, "Hey, everything's clear. I checked all the beds." I go, "Hey, did you check under the beds? Did you check the closets?" "Yeah, I did." I go, "We're going to have one chance. Are you sure?" "I'm sure." I said, "Man, tell this guy to drop the garden hose and let's go. The whole top of the house is on fire." So they start arguing. And he's like this and like that. And he grabs the hose, and now they're like fighting over the hose. So in the kitchen, the back door is open. And from the top of the house, the back like starts to fall.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, big chunks are coming off the top, and the house is collapsing. Then inside the house, all of a sudden, I guess in fire, this is what they told me later, that a fire, before it has what's called a flashpoint, it sucks up oxygen. So in the walls, it was going, like things were like sucking up. And I knew it wasn't good. Like, I'd seen the movie Backflash or whatever from the 80s. Remember?
Backdraft,
making
yeah.
how to backdraft. Like I'd say
Yeah.
backdraft, so I'm an expert, right?
Yeah.
So I hear oxygen sucking up, and I'm like, something bad's gonna happen. I go, hey man, put that hose down. So the investigation says that, the investigation, even when you're retired, you got to be careful, like how things. The investigation says that an officer punched him in the face and knocked down as a saving rescue. That all of a sudden the suspect, who was equivalent to drowning in the ocean and fighting his rescuers, was suddenly struck in the face and knocked to the ground. And then the next thing, we'll speed up, I picked the guy up in a fireman's carry, and now I'm headed to the front door. And now there's smoke billowing down in the house. And so we get outside, we put the guy down, and I'm cuffing up black stuff. Like I ended up spending like a week in the hospital. I have carbon monoxide poison, but I don't know it. And this guy is like, he comes to, he's like, these officers beat me up. And his son's like some gangbanger. And so his son goes, you did my day. He's like, now cops are showing up, but that's just me and my partner. The son tries to attack us, right? Well, let's just say proper arrest and control tactics were used on him all the way down to the ground. And so anyway, the dad's there or whatever. So I go to ambulance. They arrest the dad, I guess, tried to like jump into it afterwards. They end up arresting the dude we saved and the son. Yeah. And so like I'm in the hospital or whatever. A year later, I get a subpoena to go to court. They're prosecuting these guys for like attacking the police after we rescued and saved the dad. Anyway, we go to court. We do a jury trial. We convict them both. And so at the end of the jury trial, my phone rings. Like it's like, back in the StarTAC days, like we didn't have like smartphones. And I'm like, hello? Hey, it's the captain area office. They go, hey man, you guys are getting the police star for like saving those guys. Like ironic, man. We're at court convicting them of obstructing and so anyway, we got a medal for saving this guy and convicting him of criminal obstruction and his gangbanger son. So like, that's a topper, man. You know what I mean? I told you this story in person, because we're creating a record here. There's obviously more to the story, but I want to keep it PG, but it's crazy out there, man. You know what I mean? It's crazy out there. It's a crazy job, man? But we did save this guy's life legitimately. And I did spend a week in the hospital, and it was bad.
I mean, you were in a business where you would shoot a bad guy for brandishing a firearm, and then your instinct is now go save that guy's life. So like
100%. Yeah, the martial art, it's a life-giving sword, man. That's I think like most cops may not be able to articulate this, but sometimes honestly you may have to take a life to save a life or save hundreds of people from being victimized by this predator.
Yeah.
So those are things you got to work out. Maybe that's not for everybody, but definitely for me. Like I was designed with that constitution, and it was martial arts training and combative sports that developed my mind that way. Yeah. The training was very important. The process
Tell the audience, because I didn't include it in the video we did together, but tell the audience the story about how you were in the academy, you were doing that event, and you went up against the boxer and you used your judo. I think that's a really, So what was that event called?
So today, one of the complaints about law enforcement is, although they have Archon and other things, the training today is not as physical as it was at one time. And, they changed psychological, requirements for the types of officer they had. But when I was hired, they hired aggressive people by personality traits. Minnesota Mines and the test that they take, they wanted aggressive people. It was a very different type of police department than police departments are today. So we were in the police academy, and we had this renowned, very well-known acquaintance of judo, Gene LaBelle, and they called this guy Judo Jim Jarvis. And Jim Jarvis was like a 40-year police officer. He was a black belt in judo, very well-known self-defense instructor, PT instructor. And I had got to know him a little bit because he was like, hey, I heard you're a wrestler, judo guy. And he was like, hey, when you get out of the police academy, you should train at like these places. Do you think I waited to get out of the police academy? No. I started training at Tenry Judo Club while I was on the police department. People go, you're crazy. What if you get hurt? Well, see, I never thought that way. Like my whole time, like I never took the safe route and anything. So people go, what if you get hurt? Like you could, be recycled and whatnot. What makes me who I am is I don't take the safe route. I trained all through the police academy. I trained all through my probation period when people were constantly telling me to take the safe route. I don't take the safe route. I recommend to people, don't take the safe route. Like, but that's a different conversation. So anyway, they had this exercise called the Fight for Life. And so what it was is you simulated a foot pursuit around the track. It's like the very famous track. If you've seen Charlie's Angels or any of these 80s shows, it's the Rampart Arc and whatnot. Well, right on top is the field, right? That field's laid out in the beginning of Joseph Wamba's book, The New Centurions, that the police recruits are running on that track. This is a famous piece of real estate. So we have like wood blocks, we're simulating a foot pursuit. And then at the end, they put boxing gloves on you and you duke it out with your the guy you're chasing, right? So they're running this as a drill. And what they wanted to, if you'd never been punched in the face, that day you're going to get punched in the face. And like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. And being punched in the face, you learn a lot about yourself. Like if you're a person that gets punched and folds, well, that's something you got to work on, man. You got to work through that. But you're never going to know that where you don't want to get punched in the face is on the street for the first time. So, and I'll tell you a story about that. There was this officer where I was working in Foothill. She got pushed down and the suspect grabbed her tie on the way down. She shot the guy and killed him, right? That was a big thing. Like that's not a justifiable use of force. But where was she in that training? Had anyone ever hit her before? Why did she go to 0-100? Well, these drills, like the Fight for Life, are addressed to do, we would call it in martial arts training, scenario-based, adrenal training. We're more advanced now, but back then they called it the Fight for Life. So we'd do a foot pursuit, turn around, glove up. This guy was a boxer from Philadelphia, an amateur boxer. Philadelphia is a top flight, savage boxing community. Mm-hmm. So I put on my gloves. Apparently boxing one smoker in the Marine Corps and doing youth boxing at the Redwood City Police Youth Club is much different than fighting a kid from Philadelphia that's a savage. So I'm getting lefts, rights, like I'm getting drilled hard, man. And, I'm seeing white, man. My bell's rung. So I go to autopilot. I shoot in a double leg. I pick them up and I body slam them on the track. Boom. And then all of a sudden the whistle's like, oh my God, like, what did you do? Like, you broke the rules. Like the PT instructors, like Marine Corps drill instructors are running up on me like, what did you do? And so Bob Jarvis is there and he watched this whole thing. And he's like the senior guy. And they're like, man, like, I'm in trouble, like for defending myself. And they go, this is boxing. I said, no, sir, this is the Fight for Life. And I survived. Yeah. And Bob Jarvis goes, that's correct. That's correct. Okay, like everyone pick up and whatnot. And they never, because I was correct. It was a Fight for Life. It wasn't boxing. I did what I had to do. Mm-hmm. And that was a very valuable lesson, I think, to everybody there. And, Bob Jarvis saw that to be true. But even when we look back at this as a learning tool, the instructor saw it as a boxing exercise, not looking at what you have to do to survive. It's funny, like when I wrote my books, like, you get comments from people and we kind of talked about that offline and certainly, it makes the process like spicy and whatnot. And I'm gonna say on all humility, maybe something that I don't know and you can teach me something, right. And like maybe you can, right? Mm-hmm. But like, there's like various comments, and like, I don't really look at it, but my students are like, look what this guy said about like your Fraser headlock. And I'm like, he's like, you're giving your back up. I could take your back and whatnot. And I say like this, man, go ahead and try it, bro. Because many have tried. And the thing is like when you're breaking down techniques and whatnot, would I do a Fraser headlock to somebody in a arrest situation? Probably not, unless it was like a last ditch effort. It was there.
Yeah.
Here's the importance of doing every technique. And I know you work with a wide martial arts group.
Yeah.
You may not use the techniques, but by seeing them and becoming educated in the technique, that's your first line to defending it. Like if you're a Salat guy and you're seeing a Greco-Roman wrestler do this, hey, and then he's explaining it behind it, that's your first view at like defending, right?
Yeah.
So like when you're reviewing video or books or whatever, it's in a very defined space for knowledge and learning. So people be gentle, but certainly everybody's entitled their opinion. You probably it's like you probably like it, you know what I mean? I don't get offended by it. But
I started copying and pasting my response. I was like, thank you for your valuable input. Mark has done, been on the police force for 28 years. He was an IBJ, champion. He's a 5th degree black belt and this, that. And I'm just like.
But you know what? That's all artificial. I think the credibility, and not just me, because there's many people like me, Matt, unless you look the devil in the eye and you've been in there with life and death, bullets flying, or like I told you another story where this dude stuck a knife into my trauma plate, I survived all of it. And I survived it for 30 years, and I dealt with the worst and the wicked people. And you know what? I'll honestly say, I never got accused of excessive force. I never had an incident where I was involved in 5 officer-involved shootings over 28 years. And you know what? It all worked out. You know what I mean? And just facing down monsters. Like we're talking about people from the most infamous gangs, the most infamous criminal background, or people just that were stone cold crazy. Like everybody that has a fantasy in martial arts, like I really had to face those people, and not just once, over like a process. So, did I use pure wrestling or pure judo? No, I didn't. I did what I had to do to put handcuffs on them. So it is interesting because I remember getting some reviews like that on my book. Oh, he's just an MMA guy. I'm actually not an MMA guy. I've never had an MMA fight. But what I do believe about MMA is that today, with all the knowledge out there, as self-defense, martial arts, you do have to integrate, even if it's for understanding defense, right? Yeah. If you don't know how to sprawl, right, that's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily need to know the Fraser headlock,
right?
But you know what I mean. But it depends on what's going on, So it is.
So you had you started out with judo, right, and then you dug more into BJJ, like. I remember you did say you used a wrestling move to save the suicide jumper, but do you have any like specific stories about maybe when you use some of your techniques, during an arrest situation, like anything that really comes to mind?
Yeah. So like, for usually what's happening, you're conducting a search or you're going to contact somebody. You're in a touch mode and that person explodes.
Yeah.
So I know you have a big Krav Maga like following, and I met some of the people that Krav. That would be like the burst in Krav Maga. I think that's one of the things that a Krav Maga practitioner does very well. For what I view Darren Levine very personally, he was a district attorney. He's the person under Amy Lichtenfield that was the American godfather of, he went back to Israel to train with Amy.
Yeah.
Krav Maga worldwide. And I had many opportunities to talk to Darren in a law enforcement capacity. He was the head DA prosecutor at Van Nuys for a long time. We used to talk martial arts and whatnot. Great guy, passed away in January.
Yeah.
Very tragic. But what I think they did well was the burst. They would burst and they'd have all, their different, like the pluck and this and that, all that stuff, like work great. But I think when you contact a suspect, they're going to burst. So you have to get inside that and understand it's not going to be like in an academy where you do A and respond to B. Learning techniques slowly and whatnot are important, but you got to understand all training, all martial arts systems are artificial.
Yeah.
You cannot simulate directly a fight, right? And so another thing is you can say like in MMA, even when they're training, they can't fight the way that they're going to fight in the ring. So they're doing simulations. Gunfighting, right? You're on the range, there's marksmanship, there's tactics, right? You have, that's all a simulation too. Obviously, you can't get into real gunfights with, your coworkers and whatnot, right?
Like, not with that attitude.
No. So you have to do simulations, and then those simulations have to like lead up to a smooth transition where a lot of it's like mindset, right?
Right.
So the viewing audience, right? Like you should take in as much knowledge. Like you should have your base system and kind of like I like to do workshops and seminars and like honestly, like I'll go to like a knife seminar, or I went to this Wing Chun dummy, and it was really like interesting how this guy was like, hey man, all this stuff's for show. This is how you actually use a dummy, and it made sense. And so like I'm constantly, trying to go out of my realm. Like I was a horrible like left leg kicker. It took me like with the Thai boxing system 10 years to learn how to really kick with my left leg. I was in Phuket at Tiger, like I couldn't like do anything. Like it wasn't something you do in grappling. Yeah. And so like I can appreciate somebody that comes to jiu-jitsu and they're like totally overwhelmed, because when I go out into other martial arts, like I'm not an expert there. I'm an expert at what I do.
Right.
But that's the key, right? You've got to keep on learning, right? Because you have to know, like being educated on somebody's system, like gives you an advantage. And I think we live in a time and space where that information's very available to us, and we're almost remiss in a dangerous fashion not to do that. I think that's what you're doing very well, Adam.
Thank
you. Your program funny? Like, first of all, like it's funny to watch, and like you do a great job. Like it's set up well, but that's important because people like they don't want like some robotic thing and whatnot. So you're using your personality to communicate a very good lesson. I watched like your pieces. I was watching the piece and I just caught it, and this guy's like, yeah, in Pasadena, the Indonesian Dutch were there, and who do that? You know what I mean? Like that's the value of like podcasting. Like, hey, I circled around. I was in like I trained. Like he was like, I trained like this time, and we were like in like a storage facility, and that ended, and I let into that. I love stories like that because they're real, and there's hundreds of stories like that out there. And these people are very experienced, talented people. You know what I mean? So
I think what I'm enjoying right now, I'm sort of in my my traditional martial arts era. Like I started off in Krav Maga, and it's like, I'm like, I want to learn how to fight. I want to learn how to defend myself. And then as I started maturing more, like, and especially as I started doing videos with this coach, that coach, and they'd be teaching defense combative systems, and I'd get people saying, oh, that's Wing Chun. And I'm like, what? So I started exploring Wing Chun and all these other things, and it's like, just seeing the crossover of for thousands of years, we're all doing the same thing, but we're expressing it differently, is what is fascinating to me at this point in my life right now. You know what I mean?
So that goes back to what we said when you came to my academy. There's 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, and a torso. Like you're attacking limbs, or you're working off the center line, or you're working off half man, whatever you're gonna call it.
Yeah.
People have learned to approach it, but when you really look at it, there's more similarities and styles than there is, and especially too, like, it really depends. Like today, like when you're out and you're going to go train, you really got to look at the intent of the person, because there is a saying that I believe is true. The martial arts and religion are the last refuge of scoundrels. So there's some people out there that are
Well, and politics.
And politics. So like this, I like what Rickson says all about this, man. He says there's MFers to the right, there's MFers to the left, stay right in the middle. And that comes from the Japanese. The Japanese say not too far to the right, not too far to the left, stay in the middle. And that should be true of your martial arts training, right?
Yeah.
Don't just believe what somebody's telling you. Put it to the test. Be respectful, but over time, you may not have the skill level at first to put it to the test or whatnot. The most important thing when someone's out looking for an instructor or getting into something, make sure that instructor cares about you, and you can tell. Mm-hmm. Like when you're a competitor and whatnot, you have to be very selfish, like caring about yourself and your training and your diet. Like you're the most important thing when you're a competitor. That's the downside maybe of combat sports, especially if somebody's teaching, right? They're not fully invested. It's the exact opposite when you become a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Like Miyagi, right? It was all about Daniel, right?
Yeah.
You'll know if your teacher's there to train or if he's there to teach you. You know what I mean? And you definitely, whatever the discipline is, you want somebody that has the personality from character that they're invested in you. If you get that, and there's a lot of them out there, but there's some bad ones.
Yeah.
Make sure you have somebody that's invested in you. You're going to get much more development.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's funny you bring this up because I was looking at some of your more recent biography, and it's interesting that you say that you have to constantly be learning. You recently trained, like in the last few years, with a Gracie, and and I was wondering, like, man, at a 5th degree black belt level or whatever, like what more could you possibly learn? But I imagine you probably learned a lot. Like, could you tell me a little bit about your experience recently with?
100%. So Jean Jacques is the cousin of Rickson Gracie. So what are the particular things in Jiu-Jitsu? Just like any other martial art, over time, it becomes watered down. There's a lot of people doing Jiu-Jitsu today. It's probably not up to the highest standards, but they're comfortable with that. Because like anything else, whether it's karate, taekwondo, whatever, it's been watered down to the masses. So we're going through that. Jiu-Jitsu is so big today, it's not what it was 20, 25 years ago. Right. And it's certainly not like in the capacity. So Rickson Gracie is the patriarch, if you will.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Right, patriarch of Jiu-Jitsu. His father was Helio Gracie, and his uncle was Carlos Gracie. They're the founders of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, who learned basically judo and developed Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Remember, I told you that Japan tried to colonize Brazil for agriculture. A lot of Japanese exponents were here, including exponents of the Kodokan, the house of judo, Jigoro Kano's dojo in Tokyo. Jigoro Kano's the founder of judo. Maeda, who came from the Kodokan to Brazil for agricultural interests and development, met the father of Carlos Gracie, and Carlos and Helio ended up training under him for about a 3-year period, and then moved from Belém to the Rio area, and then they developed like their own system. And you could see how that, like we talked before about it, like judo is very canonized. Like it's a system. You can see that in the Japanese. They're very samurai-like and organized. Brazil's more like surfing, different type of culture. And you could see the development of those same techniques, that it wasn't canonized. Hey, let's do this or do this way. It's a different mentality and culture. I've been to Japan and spent time there to train at the Kodokan Izoji Temple, the heart of judo. But I've also been sent to Brazil by Jean Jacques to train with the people he grew up with and whatnot. Different culture, man. Different culture. Both warrior cultures in the academies or dojos, but different mentality. Different mentalities based on the overall, like Brazil's a very different place than Japan. That said, so Rickson is the uncle of Jean Jacques Machado. They came up together, like in the schools and whatnot. So Rickson first came to our academy many years ago, and he taught like a seminar, and it was amazing because like his knowledge base. I'll give an example. Like Eddie Bravo was there, and Eddie Bravo, who's the founder of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, he's Jean Jacques' student, but he is, he's a very popular jiu-jitsu figure. He's a great guy, very, very nice guy, big contribution to no-gi. Like he's the, going to be recognized someday as the person that really put no-gi jiu-jitsu on the map. But Rickson was there, and so Eddie is very vocal. There's probably like 100 of us there at Jean Jacques Academy when it was on Oxnard in Topanga. Tarzana. So he is breaking down a technique, and Eddie's like, who's very well known, beat Hoyler and like put his name on the map, beating Hoyler in the Mundials, and he asked a question, and Rickson like answered it in the way that it wasn't meant to be insulting, but it was very direct in what Rickson calls the invisible jiu-jitsu. He said, "No, Eddie, that's not why this works. This is why this works." Mm-hmm. And then he continued to do it in a very respectful manner, but it was obvious to everyone in the room the levels of mastery. Here's a guy that's very well known, but he's a younger guy. Yeah. Here was Rickson. His level of mastery was profound. And that's what I took away from that. I love Eddie. I didn't know Rickson that well, but it was the level of knowledge was like a PhD in rocket science to a high school guy. And what the point was Rickson's invisible jiu-jitsu. So speed forward about maybe 10 or years plus, Jean Jacques comes to me and goes, "Hey, I want to set something up very special for you and one of my black belts, Jamie Walsh." He's one of Jean Jacques' most senior black belts. He goes, "Rickson's probably going to move to Florida, but I've set up a training session for you guys to go train with him." So he was in Torrance at the time. He had a private studio there. He only did private. So we went, man, it was the experience of my life. And so I told him, I said, "Hey, man, I'm having problems with this hip escape thing or whatever." He goes, "Okay, show me, So I show him. He goes, "Man, you got to pop up on your elbow. When you come there, you got to pop up on your elbow before you do that movement." Now, listen, I knew for a long time, because Jean Jacques had shown me to pop up at that elbow. And this is true of any martial art and any training. This is a universal problem. Somehow, for all of us, somewhere when we're training long-term, somehow we leave a step out of something, or we have this very basic modality that we don't do. Yeah. And he said this, and he goes, "Hey, man, and you got to move your hip like this and that." That was a few years ago. And I was like, man, I used to know that. And then he retold me this, and it was so simple. And now, like, I'm doing it again, and it's really changed. I was like, I could not, like, get out of certain positions, but I had left this step out that I knew that I had to rediscover, right? And I think that's true in anything. So Rickson was like a guide for me, right? And so he was like, okay, I spent like 4 hours with him. It was amazing. Answered questions and whatnot. And, it was truly amazing. Jean Jacques has done that to me too with his cousin Henzo, which is a completely different character. Like, Henzo's a character. We went out to do some work, executive close protection security work for some clients, and we're going to have a lot of downtime in New York because we had to get there and do the advance and all that. That's what I do in my other world. I work in private security. So we went out there, and I told Jean Jacques, "Hey, look, we're going to go out there. Like, I'd love to get with Henzo, who had come to the academy, did a seminar. Man, the guy is so funny, like, great personality." So if you can imagine this, his academy is in Midtown, literally right across the street from Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
And you could imagine the rent on something like that. But anyway, it was amazing space and whatnot. And when Jean Jacques puts his name on it, man, they roll out the red carpet for you. And So anyway, we were training, and then they had a fight at Bellator. It was like Fader was fighting. It was like Aaron Pico's first fight in Bellator. And Henzo like invited us, and we had like great seats, and it was like an amazing like weekend. But these guys are all on the, they're the pillars of jiu-jitsu, with the first like people that were bringing jiu-jitsu to the United States of the younger crowd, Jean Jacques, Henzo, Rickson, you go back to like Horian and, his dad coming over and his uncle and, coming to teach her. I mean, that is gone now for the most part. Like we're in a new era of jiu-jitsu. And I also, people go, well, like I could go train someone cheaper. You have Jean Jacques Machado there in Woodland Hills. You have Stanford, Harvard, the MIT of jiu-jitsu there.
Yeah.
Man, I don't care how much money it costs or whatever, you got to pay for quality. And, honestly, a tuition keeps the riffraff out and you get like quality students. I've met the most amazing people at Jean Jacques Academy, the most amazing human beings and quality people over the course of over 25 years. And it's a great place to train. And I tell people, someday your involvement here, they say, why should I train here? I say, someday your involvement here, this will be, I trained with Bruce Lee. You train with Jean Jacques Machado? I wear Machado. I have like 100 Machado shirts, my own Jean Jacques. I don't think now I even own a t-shirt that isn't a Machado one, but I wear them all over. I've worn them in Europe, the Middle East. I've worn them. Everyone comes up, they approach, oh, you're a student of Jean Jacques? Like I trained here and whatnot. Jean Jacques is known all over the world, and he's a super nice guy. And just like, I talked about wrestling with Dan Gable, and people say, what was it like when you were 19 and Dan Gable was like 36? I say, man, the guy was, like he was the coach, but in the summer he was there to work out. He had tremendous heart. In a comparison, training with Jean Jacques, which I trained with him in his end of his competitive years when he did the super fight against Dean Lister he did a super fight, a world super fight. And I think it was the Abu Dhabi championship in the super fight, 2000 around there. But anyway, I said that I have never, ever gotten Jean Jacques, and I've tried. And so sometimes you say to yourself, like, if I got close to Sensei where I was finishing him, would I just stop not do that? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, like I've tried and I've done some good things, like, but I've never, ever even been close where I had him in a jeopardy position. And let me tell you, man, like people will tell you, like I'm not like a paper tiger. I'm a beast. Yeah. But I have never, ever gotten close to like getting him. And this is over like a 25-year period. So I can't even say, and I honestly say, I thought like, well, what if I ever like get close where like I can get him? But that's never happened. So like, that's not even a reality. And I've tried, man. And I tell people wrestling or doing jiu-jitsu against Jean Jacques is like doing jiu-jitsu against an empty gi. Yeah. It's like an empty gi. I mean, the guy is a voodoo, right? Mm-hmm. He's got one hand, right? You know that, right? Yeah. He's got one hand. He's like this, man. And so he's used to learn. Not only is he like one of the most world's renowned grapplers, he learned how to do it with one hand. Right. I tell you the story about Dan Gable, right? Yeah. About what happened to his sister, his mindset. And he said, I'm going to be the best wrestler in the world. I'm going to do it for my sister, right? I'm going to move into my sister's room. Here's the juxtapose. Here's Jean Jacques. I have one hand. I have 5 brothers kicking my ass. This hand is going to be a major disadvantage to me if I let it happen in my mind. Instead, he's recognized today, universal, of all his brothers, to be the most technical, right? Wow. Why is he the most technical? Because he's fighting you with one hand. And this guy did MMA in pride. Yeah. Fought in pride with one hand. Yeah. And when you put Gable here and you put Lee Allen, the fight like a wounded animal, like I could tell you other stories about Lee Allen. You put Jean Jacques here. these were all people who have done things in your life that are inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And you may not go to those levels like the Olympics or be Abu Dhabi, world jiu-jitsu champion. You may not be. But to be around those people day in and day out, you can emulate to the best of your ability to be the best version of yourself that you can be. For me, it was protecting people that couldn't protect themselves and doing that. That's what God ordained me to do, to be a protector. Someone else in our academy, they're an ER doctor. Someone else, a paramedic, this person, that person. They're all doing good things, and you should be doing good things. And that's really what martial arts should do for you. At one level, you should be dangerous as a person to protect yourself. You don't want to be using training and systems where you find out you can't fight when the stars light up.
Yeah.
But the other thing it should do is it should have a holistic effect of what you're putting into your body, what you're putting into your mind. And that's the other thing with law enforcement, man. You could get off. A department psychologist once told me during that time period when Randy Simmons was murdered, he said, we think half the department struggles with either prescription medication or with alcohol. And I could see that, because there's a lot of functional people out there, right? Martial arts is the pathway to self-discovery where you can become the best version of yourself. And I think it's good, that strip mall Sensei is out there as a media form, because we're getting a lot of sites, but it's a community too. So even though people say some saucy stuff, it's okay because they're part of a community, right? And we don't know where they're at in their journey and whatnot, but they are part of a community. They're participating and whatnot. So I'm happy for that, right? And I'll be honest with you. I met a lot of people, especially when I was writing for Black Belt. When they come to your academy, they tend to act much differently than they probably would in forums or whatever. So, it's all relative. I know I've said a lot of things probably I'm not proud of, but I will say this though. This forum's going to be better if you treat everybody with respect at all times. And even if you disagree, you should definitely do that in the most respectful manner possibly, because your parents raised you right, and they would expect that. What I say, and if you didn't, if your parents, you didn't have parents, man, better like this. Because you're involved in martial arts at this level and hanging out and watching and whatnot, you definitely know the difference between right and wrong. And whether it's karate, jiu-jitsu, kung fu, silat, whatever you're doing, martial arts begins and ends with respect.
Yeah, and for some of the people online, it's almost like these people haven't really, because one thing I've said recently is, this is the only thing I've ever done in my life that I'm just constantly failing at. I was in class the other day. I got outboxed by a lady the other day. I was tired, for the record, but it's and of course that doesn't happen all the time. I have great days where I'm doing pretty good against the biggest guy in the room, but it's just you would think that a lot of these people in these comment sections would have that mentality. And I think that's where martial arts is good, is it's constantly keeping you humble. You know what I mean? You're getting beat by your Jean Jacques still. You know what I mean? You are still failing after 25 years. You know what I mean?
Jean Jacques and I are I'm a year older. We're almost 60 years old. I mean, he's you wouldn't know it by looking at him, but he's still tapping young guys. I see it out there, And the one thing is he's totally humble. I've never, in the 25 plus years I've known him, I've never seen him brag or, there's been some incidents in the academy where maybe something bad happened or whatnot. I've never seen him get angry I've seen him be disappointed. And so I say to myself, like, man, like I want to, like, those are things like I need to work on, like I don't idolize Jean Jacques. I don't have him on a pedestal, right? I think it's bad to do that to any man. You shouldn't do that. But I do respect him. And I think as the instructor and the teacher of our school, I think he does an exceptional job, because all you have to do is like look around him. And so the other thing is like people say, oh, but like, jiu-jitsu, you're lying on the ground and you're doing this or that. That's part of it. That's not all of jiu-jitsu. And like Jean Jacques said, because we've had those like people come in and like he's been challenged, and back in the old days, like people coming in doing the dojo storm that didn't work out well for them. He said something one time that resonated with me, and I saw him say it to somebody. He goes, just because I'm not punching and kicking in this class, don't think that I can't. And then later on, he gave a self-defense class. Remember, this guy fought in Pride, and he grew up in Brazil, which is a violent, savage society, man. Like when I was down there, you gotta look around, you know what I mean? And these guys fought regularly on the beach, and they weren't like falling on their backs, like pulling guard, like they were full on fighting. So I think some of it gets a bad rap. We're lucky that we live in America. You could be honestly a total coward here and never know it, because it's a very luxurious society where you can get by pretty easy if you want to. You shouldn't. You should keep certain parts of your life Spartan. You should have private disciplines and public disciplines. These are things I talk about in my own personal life, but it is a pretty easy society. It's a first world society. You have a 911 system. If someone slaps you, they're going to jail. You'll probably take their house. It's a very civilized society. That's not where he comes from, man. He comes from like something completely different. Like if you've been to Brazil, it could be on dangerously with nobody coming. You have to be able to take care of yourself down there,
Yeah.
And that's where he came from,
Yeah. Yeah, I think last year did a class with this guy who moved to South Africa. He does, gun takeaways, knife takeaways, and he's like, well, now that I'm in America, I have to teach this whole knife defense system differently, because, people are far different in America than they are in South Africa. In South Africa, they'll just kill you for the fun of it after they rob you. In America,
this is true.
Yeah.
This is true. So I had a deputy chief that I used to work with that went to do police consulting in South Africa, and then I met security people coming and working in there. South Africa, they have to live in compounds and move in convoys and whatnot, because the crime is so pervasive there. And it's violent crime. And there's other places like that. If you've been to Jamaica, like you go to the, Sandals or whatever, like you're not seeing the real Jamaica. Jamaica is like one of the most violent places in the world. So is Tijuana, Mexico.
Yeah.
These are places very different than the overall safe cities. I mean, there's dangerous parts in Los Angeles, and you're not going to go walking into the projects, and but much different than walking into the favelas of Rio de Janeiro. I mean, the favelas, they can't even get their police and military in there. And if they do, they have to go in there once in a while for something. There's a major gunfight. It's hard for the average person to comprehend that, like how violent a place can be.
Yeah.
Now, that said, we're constantly on forums and media, whether it's written or whatever, we're putting our value system towards a larger pervasive discipline of violence. Violence is wide issue.
Yeah.
There's a saying that they blindfold a man and they go, we want to know what an elephant feels like. So they take 3 different people, and one guy goes to the husk and he feels like the husk, and the nose, he goes, the elephant feels like, describes the husk of the nose. Other guy gets to the rear leg. The elephant feels like, defines the muscles of the rear leg down to the hoof. The other guy goes to the side, he's blindfolded. Define what an elephant is. He's feeling the side of an elephant. An elephant has a big belly and it's like tall, right?
Yeah.
All three are correct, right? But all three have a different perspective. Being blindfolded on something large, an elephant,
Yeah.
it's the same thing with violence, right? No one has a complete coin on violence. People are in the genre, if you will, of what they know to be violence.
Right.
So is it like sports violence? Were you a victim of domestic violence? Were you did you get attacked by a gang? Were you in a bar fight, right? Were you jacked at an ATM? These are all forms of violence, but nobody, not even a police officer, has a full understanding of everything. And that's why being able to study and communicate in forms like this, or reading great self-defense books out there, helps you compartmentalize, if you will, and understand not just to read, but to study, right? So I think one of the advantages that I bring as a martial arts teacher is I have a tremendous understanding of first world violence, both seeing it and being experienced in it. Can I tell you about it? I can, but it's going to take time. And you're going to have to get to know me because you're going to have to trust me. Like I tell martial arts students, I can't teach you how to fight. I can only show you the mechanics of fighting. Only you know if you're going to be able to fight. That's a psychological process. Somebody could be the toughest, the best trainer, mechanic, they can box and kick and do everything, or their self-defense, Krav Maga. But if they don't have it in their head where they're going to be a dog, like if this happens, like I don't care what happens, I'm going to go down like swinging, or I'm going to be victorious, right? If they don't have that, that is something that over time you try to develop, but you can't necessarily teach somebody that in the same way you teach somebody mechanical techniques, because not everybody's programmed that way. Not everybody in the Vietnam War or in World War II could pull the trigger on a rifle, right? For whatever reason, they couldn't do it. They could not kill another human being, even if that human was going to kill them. There's pervasive studies in academia on this, and that exists walking around us. This person feels non-confident. They go to martial arts training, they learn the mechanics, but they haven't in their head come to grips that someday they may have to use this. And that's something as an instructor that you have to understand about your students, is not only their learning style, how they're learning, are they audio, are they, a touch person or whatnot. You got to see in training and develop training method, if they have that wolf in them, right?
Yeah.
Very wise police officer told me, they told me two things. The first one, we're going to get all kinds of negative comments, but it's a juxtapose. And you really have to be involved in policing to understand this. This training officer, like, first night, he's like, we're out in East LA, and he's like, and then you see the way the shadows line down and like off the street light like this. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I kind of remember some of that from the military. I'm thinking in my head, he's like, this is dangerous. Like if you do this, like that, you could get killed out here doing this way. And he's talking about how the lights and getting into the light and using light on a tactical approach on a car or on a house. And I was at that point, I was like, man, this mother crazy, man. But then later on, he was telling me about his experiences in Vietnam. And then it all made sense. I was like, okay, this guy's like pretty smart. Then he told me something else. This is very hard for people to understand. It's in the realm of what they used to say in policing. It takes a wolf to catch a wolf, right? Remember that. It takes a wolf to catch a wolf. This training officer one day goes, what's the difference between, we're sitting in the car, man, we're at the center, he goes, what's the difference between a very good police officer and a criminal? And I'm like, well, the police, he goes, there is no difference. Now, listen, he didn't mean that you go out and, do training day on people and whatnot. He was a very moral person. What he meant is in your mentality, you have to be, and this is important for martial arts training, that sometimes you have to have the understanding internally to be able to do what you have to do to survive. If this criminal's going to kill you, man, you have to have the resolve to kill him first. What's the 11th commandment? What is the 11th commandment?
What?
Do unto others before they do it to you, right?
Okay.
Do unto others before they do it to you. So the what's the difference question is a juxtapose of taking two things that are completely opposite, but what the common out. It is a trip to hear that, right?
Yeah.
But that didn't make sense to me that day. That made sense to me 20 years later, because if you're like, there's somebody out there going, oh my God, call the ACLU. These guys are talking about cops and criminals. There is no difference, is a mentality that if you're going to fight monsters, you better be able to play on their field, but from an ethical standpoint, obviously, right?
Right.
Nietzsche, you look into the eye of the monster, right? Nietzsche, right? You look in the eye,
Nietzsche,
be careful that you don't become that, right?
Yeah.
That's a very real thing too. Like, we are pervasively around violence. But when you're looking into that eye of evil, like, you've got to deal with it, right? You may have to come down to that visceral carnal level to protect, right? So there is no difference, but there's a major difference. And that's how there is a major difference.
Yeah.
But sometimes in the heat of battle, there's not, right? And this was a experienced police officer, a very awesome person and father and whatnot, and a hardcore Vietnam combat veteran, machine gunner in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And those were lessons like he was imparting to me. And that's like martial arts. That lesson that day did not make sense. I go, what do you mean? Like, there's no difference. There's all kinds of difference between cops and criminals, right? There's nuggets like that your instructor, your system is trying to teach you, and they're not wrong. You're just not of the maturity in your system to understand it yet, because sometimes out there it's got to be how it's got to be, but you got to be doing it for the right reason.
I think
for
that
the
makes
right reasons.
perfect sense, though. Like, I would call that, you know how they call it a cop's hunch, you know? It's like, in order to develop a cop's hunch, you have to have a mirror image of a criminal sociopathy. Like, you've got to have a hunch in order to reverse engineer a criminal's lies to you. You know what I mean? So
100%, man.
it's the polar opposite thing, yeah.
Right. The thing is too, I put this book out on my personal Instagram. So my Instagram's like about books, maybe some training and stuff. It's not selfies of me everywhere. That's not my thing. But like, I do like to communicate like good reads and stuff. So there's this blogger guy, Wim Demir, and years ago, like, I was reading, he interviewed me for a couple of books or whatever. And then I did a piece for one book that he wrote, like Campfire Stories from Hell, or one of these books that he did. And I was reading his blog, and he always like put good books up there. I don't know why this book grabbed my fascination, but it was like a disc world, like kind of futuristic, you know, off-planet type of story, but it had to do with the police department of a different like world, a village. And so the author is a renowned author, Terry Pratchett, and he wrote this book called Night Watch. And I read this book, and it was about a guy that gets zapped back in time as a police officer. His story about getting back on the police department, but there's a younger version, the younger of himself. And himself is getting offline into corruption. And he has to correct the young version of himself to bring him back to being like, you know, there's a lot of negative influences in this and whatnot. And the writing in this book, like Pratchett's a novelist, right? You know, science fiction novelist. He'd never been a police officer, but I don't know who was like technically advising him. Not only was this book have a lot of truth about policing in it, but about cops that work at night and stay on night. Not like they're on nights for 3 months. Cops that work at night for the majority of their career, they are nocturnal, different type of watch, different type of people. Everybody knows it. They're the patrol guys that work at night. People, they do their time in patrol, they go to the tech. Some guys just stay there forever. He had such a profound knowledge of man, just like little stories and tells in it of him trying to, and in one part, like he touches his badge and it's the badge that's like keeping him from stepping over the line as a reminder to him. And he defines very much that. And those are kind of like the stories, like this old wise training officer used to tell me, they only make sense if you like have the experience. Like, you cannot not, like policing's one of those things, you cannot not have the experience and be able to like digest it. That's why cops for martial arts are the toughest audience to go teach in front of, even if it's a bunch of non-martial arts guys. Cause like cops, man, first of all, they'll sniff out a phony because that's what they do for a living. And then they're just they're a hard group to teach. You know what I mean? They're a hard group to teach. But if you have the credibility, because you did what they did, it's the easiest group to teach because they'll trust you if they believe you. But you got to have the creds going in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was actually wondering, kind of going back to Jean Jacques and all of that. I had read somewhere that you helped Eddie develop some of his wrestling transitions as he was building 10th Planet.
Oh,
Did
Eddie Bravo?
That?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got like great 10th. So Eddie, after he defeated Hoyler in the I think it was Abu Dhabi down there, the Mundials or whatever, wherever he defeated him. I should know, right? But it was huge. It was a watershed moment in jiu-jitsu. Like Joe Rogan, who trained with us, they're good friends. Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan, and Eddie are good friends. They were down there with Jamie Walsh when he beats Hoyler in this epic tournament match. So he comes back, he's like an immediate celebrity, and everybody's like, no-gi. It was like the genesis of no-gi. It was like around, the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And so he's like, hey man, I started my own academy. I got the blessing, but I'm in Chris Riley's kickboxing gym on Santa Monica Boulevard, which is a Muay Thai gym. And, I got some mat space there, and that's where I'm starting out. And so this is where 10th Planet started at a Muay Thai kickboxing gym. And he was like, hey, wrestling's kind of no-gi. Can you teach my class just on Saturdays? Can you do a wrestling class and my guys will come? Okay, so I did it for about 2 years. And I say, like 10th Planet's like a huge thing now. And I was never really involved in it, except like I was their first wrestling transitions like coach. So I like to say, man, I was out there with Eddie, like his first paid instructor in 10th Planet. But it, went another like different direction. But, that's definitely like probably not a lot of people now, but it was funny because people used to come in there and do challenges. So I remember I have this attorney, very good friend to this day, but he was doing kickboxing and he ended up becoming one of later on my private student. And then he ended up sending me as an attorney a lot of work related to security over time. So I've known this guy, near 25 years. But the first day he walks over, he goes, he's like from Florida, he's like, what's this 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu? Like, I think I might be interested. And as we're talking, this guy comes in from off the street. He goes, man, this, blah, 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 this and that. He's like, I want to see you do some of that to me. So I step on the knot. I'm like, okay, man. And so this guy charges me, and I pick him up and body slam him, like, boom, in front of everybody. And I get up. He goes, man, I bet you can't do that to me again. He tries to grab me the exact same way. I do it to him again. Boom. He gets up. He goes, all right, man. Well, that's good for me. And he just heads out the front door. And so that attorney, Steve Sweat, was sold on my training methodologies from that day. And so true story, man. Like I was actually there, like when some dude came off the street to challenge me. Like you heard all these stories of dojo story. That's the only time somebody's ever come off the street, but if you know the LA area and Santa Monica Boulevard and West Hollywood, you could see that happen. It's a pretty wild place, you know. Not high crime, but a lot of crazy people. You know?
Yeah.
Especially that was like a while ago, like 20 something years ago. But I can honestly say somebody came in the academy and challenged me. So.
Now, you don't have to answer this, but you said you've never defeated Jean Jacques. How are you up against Eddie Bravo?
So like well, we used to go like, my style's like so different. I'd be on top. So what I learned from Eddie, man, is never to relax your leg in a lockdown guard. So he has this really good lockdown guard. So, one time I was relaxing it and it stretched my knee out and it hurt my knee and I was hurt. He didn't mean to do it. He probably doesn't even know he did it. But now 20 something years later, whenever I feel a lockdown guard come in, which is, you locking down the leg from someone else, they're isolating your leg, but it's tight and it's a lot of pressure. I have learned to never relax my leg in that position. And I have like a couple different escape positions because I don't ever want my knee to get hurt in that position again. And so like Eddie and I, we used to have good goes, but you'd have to attribute that to the whole room, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave anyone out, but there were like Mark Armstrong, Jay Zabalos, who are Jean Jacques' like top instructors. They're now helping him run the academy. There was Jamie Walsh. There was this guy, Aaron. There was Eddie Bravo, Joe Rogan, who got in there and scrap, man. He was doing like, I don't know, like Fear Factor, and before that, like some other show before, like, I remember sitting there one day and him saying, "Oh, I'm going to do this thing called the podcast." And I looked over at Jamie Walsh. I'm like, "What's that? Sounds like a loser." Right. Okay. Right.
And look where you are now.
Yeah. So anyway, I remember him trying to explain to us at Jean Jacques' old academy what a podcast was. I'm going to do this thing called a podcast. And like, that's back when like Eddie was doing like the UFC with them. Yeah. But we had a lot of really tough people in that room. That room was savage. And I always tell people like this, what the room is today is still tough training, but it's different because jiu-jitsu doesn't have to prove itself anymore. When we were at the original like academy, and I wasn't an original member, I came in later, but they would get people there and they try to make them quit. Like their goal was like, I want to make this guy quit like this. Now, I came up that way in wrestling. The wrestling rooms I was in was savage. The first day when I walked into the University of Iowa as a walk-in, they were like, I swear to God, he goes, fresh meat. And now at my academy as a joke, I always say when someone walks in, fresh meat, right? So this guy actually said to me, man, at the University of Iowa, he goes, fresh meat, right? And and they really thought that way, man. It was, but that's how it was in the original academy. And so this room, man, we talk about it. I talk about this with Mark Armstrong all the time. There was Todd White. Todd White is a famous artist. He was in that original room. There were so many, Scott DeWitt, who was just a different type of grappler, Scott Young, who's still like, he's older than me and he's still like on the mat, training hard. But this was all the original room of Jean Jacques, and all these guys today are black belts and they're the instructors and whatnot. But we all agree it's market different. The whole environment is different. Society is different, but we cherish the fact that we came up in this violent room. Yeah. And, but we understand today that jiu-jitsu is out to the masses now. Now with that, you have to be careful because there's a lot of clubs out there that it's so easy that you may be thinking like you're moving up. But the reality is if you come to a club, like you're going to find out, man, if your jiu-jitsu works or not. So you should be able to especially in your system of jiu-jitsu, universally, you should go around, not be ducking people, not looking to get hurt, but your jiu-jitsu should work at every club that you go to.
Yeah.
And if you're afraid to go somewhere else and train, or, you're on vacation and you're afraid to go to some room in Hawaii or something, you have to evaluate like what you're doing. You know what I mean? I get it. When you get older and whatnot, you don't want to get hurt. But if you're doing jiu-jitsu, that's got to work in any room, any academy that you go to. That's a pretty high standard. Like, probably some people are cringing right now because, and what I see in jiu-jitsu today is there's a watered down process. Some of it's okay because it has applied to the masses, and it's definitely the other thing too. If it's too sportive, so we talk about Jean Jacques in his book that I talked about when we spoke last in my academy. Robert Drysdale work. He talks about interviews Jean Jacques, who discusses what's called the short game of jiu-jitsu. And the short game is a self-defense game where, like what I was saying, like you don't need to know how to do the Fraser headlock, or you may never use it. I never used it on the street, but I use it in wrestling all the time. But I do know a larger concept behind it. Control the head, control the body, right? And I've controlled the head, control the body many times on the street. So the concept involved, but you should at least know how to defend it, because I've had many people try to put me in a headlock, but because I understand the headlock at a granular level, I know how to defend the headlock.
Yeah, absolutely. The more you know, the better.
The more you know and understand, like you can't retain everything.
No.
That's why it's important to keep training. Just like I said, the whole thing where I wasn't getting up on my elbow, and Rickson like rejuvenated that for me. Like it's a process, right? And sometimes you'll be in class and you'll be like, you know what? They said this 20 times in the last 5 years, but today it made sense. That's the truth, right? Everybody's had that epiphany.
Oh my God,
That's why I'm amazed, is even as like, I'm not the most technical guy in jiu-jitsu, but I have like what I do. But every time I go to headquarters and Jean Jacques teaching, I get something and I'm like, wow, you know what? I like the way you explained that or whatnot. But again, too, you got to be open to it. You got to, the whole thing with martial arts is you have to maintain, you have to be confident. Like, we're not telling you to lay down and be a doormat, but you have to be confident to leave your ego at the door so you can, to take it in, right? But you do have something like toughness, you're not here to lay down or whatever. Like, they sometimes that confidence at balance with humility is people want you to be like a sycophant, like sappy, we don't want that. We want confident people, right? But in order to take in information, you have to have a level of humility. And if you don't have it, you need to work on that, because you can get there. You just need to work.
Well, I suppose a question negating what you said, is there anything being taught in, because as you said, BJJ is sort of getting more watered down. Is there anything being taught that's kind of making you cringe, or has been taught for a while that's made you cringe in BJJ or judo? Anything you could think of?
Well, I'm not too much around the judo scene. Like I do practice and whatnot, like, my drills and whatnot, and we go through segments, but I haven't walked into a judo dojo like probably in about 10 years. I went to Japan kind of as a sojourn, but I'm mainly involved in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I do practice judo, what I mean? So at my academy, but it's not the same as going to, being under a sensei at an academy. What I see is people asking about when they're going to get promoted. That's like a no-no. Like that never existed. When original jiu-jitsu, if you asked when you're going to get promoted, that put a year on your next promotion, right? And this is how it was handled with us. Like, you are testing every day. There should be no paid test or anything in jiu-jitsu. Like, whatever you do in your discipline or whatever, I'm not criticizing it. But in jiu-jitsu, there were no stripes. Stripes get introduced basically for small little like goals in between. Is it wrong or right? We didn't do it. Then we did it at headquarters, and then we stopped doing it, right? What I liked about when I came through the system, I never received any stripe. It was training one day and class was stopped. You got another belt. Like you never knew it was coming or whatnot. But what Jean Jacques said, and a mantra that I say, is every day you're testing. Is there a test? Like what? Every day you're testing. Whether you're here, not here. If you're in class, you're testing. If you're not here, you're still testing. You're just not here. I'm watching everything at all times for your development. I will not give you a belt unless you are to the standard of what that belt held at one time. Not maybe today. Like we have guys come into our club and they're like 2 belts above somebody and they just get worked over. And that's embarrassing, right? Because there again, they didn't get a real test of where they're supposed to be at. I don't know what's going on in their academy, but there are bastardizations and there are watered down for profit, like Miyamoto Masashi said, the Meg and the flower, like people are more interested in the flashy and the showiness of it. Like that's like the scourge of social media. And there are people, not just in jiu-jitsu, but like they want to get to a belt rank and they want to be an instructor. Like that's their whole goal. Okay, but like, where's the process, right? You have to have a mastery at a certain level. You don't have to be good at everything, right? But you have to be respected, right? So, especially in jiu-jitsu, like everybody knows what everyone can do. You have to be respected, right? And so respect in jiu-jitsu is you're like, man, you know, that maybe this person's technical, this person's like a savage, right? Or somewhere in between, right? It's not the person like looking to get out of the work, looking to get out of the training, doing as minimal as possible, and then expecting to get promoted. I heard after like I left a certain group, I heard one student when they didn't get promoted went outside and started pouting and crying. I used to have a student that would see if I was in class, and if I wasn't there, they'd get back in their car and leave. Like I heard about like different people doing different things, and what was central to all these people, they all wanted to get promoted as quick as possible because it was about ego. It wasn't about mastery of the art and having that humility. And so like some systems, I saw people literally getting into them and trying to get into, not jiu-jitsu because it's set up different, but different people getting into instructor certifications and then wanted to be an instructor. So they had that status, but what do you really have? You know,
Right.
can you really like, you know, and you know, I mean, this is when we look at something honestly, and I'm not here to offend anybody, but I'm here to talk realistically. This exists in the martial arts, and this is what hurts it, man. This is the bastardization, or sometimes even the sportification of a martial arts. And you've seen this in other things going sportive. Like I doubt Jigoro Kano wanted to make judo an Olympic sport. If Jigoro Kano saw what judo had become, it's not within his principles of his writings, which he did a lot of detailed, pervasive writings on judo and the canonization and the philosophical side. What happened at some point, they saw they could get into the Olympics. Just like in jiu-jitsu, like it's like heavily competition based and it's about winning and this and that. You only need, and this is what I said too, you only need about 5%, maybe 10% of jiu-jitsu to defend yourself out on the street. The rest of it is granular. The granular becomes important because it gets you into the fine minutiae of escape and like positioning and using position of smaller bone structures moving into bigger bone structures as framing positions to escape and technical things like that. The more you get into the minutia of that, the smaller space that you need because you have the sensitivity with your body. But do you need that really for self-defense? It's important later if you develop it, But it goes back to like what they said in jiu-jitsu for like policing and cops. You should be at a blue belt level. You should be at a blue belt, you know? And so that's really important, that you have to, you don't need it all, but you do have to be consistent. You do need to be in shape. You can't be somebody who's doing a martial art, but doing absolutely no cardio, no resistance training, which is usually weights. These are all things that have to come together.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's actually, that is one reason why I held off on my Krav Maga brown belt test, is like I felt like I didn't even want to risk getting the belt just yet, because I have not completely mastered everything I need to learn. You know, funny enough, we just started introducing they just started introducing judo throws to my belt level, and it's like, nope, I want to spend at least, you know, another year perfecting this until I, you know, get the belt. You know what I mean?
Right. I think that's commendable and important. I mean, that shows to me somebody like invested in the system. And I've had students like, oh, like, man, this belt, like, you know, I like almost saying they don't want it because they don't feel like they're ready for it. But that's a decision for me.
Yeah.
People in jiu-jitsu too, they get promoted. Like, obviously somebody at 55 years old, I don't have the expectations physically of somebody 20 years old.
Right.
So there's different, and that's just not physical. It's like mental, like where they're at and whatnot. But there are people too, like I said, they don't care, man. They'd go out and buy a belt. I've had people that I know go out to like seminars and they're like, hey, $100 you can test for your black belt. And they do it. And then they wonder why. I had some students like on the fence with this. And they had stayed, there's, you know, the gym breakup, and they were out doing this stuff. And like a couple of them, I was like, hey, listen, you got to look in the mirror, man. Like, you know, if you if you're going to go out and purchase a belt, you're going to have to be very careful with that. But they were out testing. Like one guy, I told him, I go, hey, listen, man, you're going to have to make a decision. You know what I mean? Like you're going to be my friend no matter what. But like, because of credibility, like you're either going to come with us or you're going to go do something else. And our lineage is deep. I hope you come with us. And he came with us, but he saw his road dog go test for $100. And he'd been offered the same thing at like some seminar. If you're paying in jiu-jitsu, like somebody to take a belt test or whatever, like,
I mean, at that point,
I just, that never originally existed in the system. And so like, you know, I mean, honestly, like I have an academy. Listen, let me put it this way. I have an academy. They pay tuition. I teach it. I treat it in the same capacity as a university. I don't call it a gym fee. I don't have a gym. I have an academy. Yeah. You come to the academy to learn. I take it the same way you would approach a university.
All right.
I am selective about my students. I won't take everyone as a student. And I don't need to financially. I did 30 years with the police department. I'm a very hardworking businessman. I make my money away from jiu-jitsu. It has allowed me to be true to jiu-jitsu because I don't have to open up a floodgate and bring everybody in, which I do like because it keeps it honest. That said, I keep things very traditional. You're testing every day. There is no test. The test is that you're testing every day. That's the only test. When you're ready, I'll give you that belt. And I've always had the blessing of Jean Jacques and the other black belts because I make good decisions. I've never said to somebody, hey, we're going to have this, you got to do this seminar to do this, or you have to pay $100 or $500 to take this belt test. Because why? I didn't come up that way. Mm-hmm. Just like we came up, we're doing stripes. And I just realized, man, the best way to come out in what I do is no stripes. You're testing every day. I'll let you know when you're ready. And I'm fair too. Like I don't hold people out. Like if they're putting in the work and whatnot, like to me, like out of my students, I probably have about, like 6, 7 black belts, and they all made black belt in under 10 years. So it's not like I'm stringing them out or whatnot, but they practiced consistently, right?
Right.
They practiced consistently. I got a couple of brown belts right now. They're working hard, but they took some time off. They probably think they're getting promoted soon. Ain't gonna happen, guys. You gotta do the time. You know who I'm talking about. They're gonna be so disappointed, right? But the thing is, like, we never tell or anything. You got to do the time and put the work in and be like the development. But you know what, too? When you get promoted in my school, you know you earned it. Mm-hmm. I had this guy, man. I'll tell you. You said, like, how have you influenced people and whatnot? So I had this guy. They were gonna fire him, man. And they're like, this guy screwed up, and this guy's a horrible police officer. Everyone's gone through him. We're going to fire him, right? Like, okay. So I get him, like, hey, what's wrong? Like, what are you doing? He goes, sir, like, I'm not doing very well, but let me tell you about myself. I go, yeah, man, tell me. He goes, when I graduated from high school, all my friends joined the Marines, and they all went to the war, and they all came back, and now they're in fire and policing and whatnot. But my father died, and I felt that I needed to stay home and take care of my mom. So I got a security job at the airport, and it was a good job, but it socially retarded me. He said that it socially disadvantaged him, and he never like matured like these other guys that went away and had these Marine Corps experiences or whatnot. But he said to me, he goes, sir, I can tell you one thing. I said, what's that? He goes, I'm not a pussy. I go, okay, man. We're going to see about that, man. I drove this dude for the next 3 months. I want to see, man, what was in his heart. Because I believe, like, you can learn to write later. And you have to learn safety first as a police. I had a very, like, specific way of, like, teaching, right? And, but I want to make sure, like, he had heart. Because if someone has heart, you can deal with it. He had heart. And at the end of his probation, he said, sir, I had a real probation, didn't I? I said, you sure did, and you made it. This guy went on to do amazing things in the police department. He is now like one of the top fighters, like doing badge fights and all this stuff. Like, people love him. Like, he's on social media and stuff. Like, like, it's amazing, man. And to see, like, they were going to fire him, man. Mm-hmm. But I always said, like, Miyagi, never a bad student, usually a bad teacher. Right. And I saved him, and he put the work in, and he's grateful. I still talk to him. I'm thinking he's going to fight out in, like, the desert somewhere, in, like, LAPD versus the sheriffs, and I'm going to go out there and see him. I haven't seen him in a long time. I've been retired for 8 years, but they check in with me. But let me tell you a story about him, man. Like, he was watching, and he had done some boxing or whatever, but he didn't have, like, the experience he has now. He's been working like this. So one night, like, there's a guy is going off. This guy goes to hit me. I grab his fist, just like, we were talking about on the podcast. I grab his fist, but I don't stop it. I take him, I guide him around, and I hip toss this dude, boom, down to the ground. And I get on top of it, hit like this. So this sergeant's watching, and, we're doing, like, the paperwork on this guy getting drilled to the pavement. And he goes, sir, can I ask you something? I go, yeah. He goes, like, I heard, but, like, do you think, like, you could teach me how to do that? I said, absolutely not. That's a lifetime of training, man, to, like, gauge that and hit that hip throw. That's not even in the curriculization of this. That's like a move that I learned when people are moving left, right. I said, you need a lifetime to do that. I go, but you know what? You can start at any of these disciplines from the bottom like this. So he makes probation, right? Yeah. I get a text one day. Hey, guess where I'm at, sir? Where? He's in, I had been showing when I went to Phuket to train in Thailand. I was like, hey, man, not this way. He's like, sir, I'm at Phuket at Tiger right now. I'm training here because you came here. Sending me pictures from all over. Sir, I'm at this place. I'm like in this country doing this and that. You said to come here. This guy went and did all this stuff. I didn't tell him to do that. I only started to start training, and he's picked up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. A lot of my partners, I had this other partner, this guy's like working Metro now. Oh, what a Medal of Valor. He was my partner on the Fire Caper. after like we parted ways after years and he went on with his career while I stayed in patrol, he got involved in jiu-jitsu, and he's like, man, like, I don't know why I never did it, but like now I'm doing it. And like, he's working his way. He's almost a black belt, right? So a lot of these people, maybe you don't influence them right there, but later on they continue. And so I'll say this, you know, like we talked, like my internal was to protect people that couldn't protect themselves, you know. That's what I was built to do. You know, there's that segment, that beautiful reel that you did about, you know, that was never an Olympian, right? But that was my goal, right? But the Lord works in mysterious ways. And I needed that development of that hardcore wrestling to develop into, you know, being able to handle people in the streets. Yeah, I couldn't beat the top guys that I needed to beat. I lost every one of them, like I told you. But on the street, you know, you're dealing with a different type of predator, right? And so when you mix judo with wrestling, with other things, like, you know, and you're on the side of good, you're the good guys. The cops are the good guys. Is that, you know, you're putting it together. And man, I always felt too, like when we'd be walking into a dangerous situation, I'd be like this, man, you know what, man? First of all, like, I know like Jesus is in my heart and he's going to protect me. But if he doesn't, I'm doing the right thing. This is the right thing to do. You know, I'm on the side of right, man. I could never be a drug dealer or hurt somebody or do something like criminal to somebody. It's just, I couldn't do it. Like I could never be a mafia guy, right? But I can be ruthless on the side of good, man. If you're hurting someone, if you're hurting a kid, if you're beating your wife up, like I could be your best friend. If you come along peacefully, I could be your worst enemy. And I had the discernment and judgment to do it like a lot of police officers do. I've been in the, you know, just when you're going to blow me up now and say, like, I'm giving you my back, or you're going to say something stupid in the comment section. Just remember, man, that, you know, if you walk through my door at my academy, I'd be happy to work with you. But the other thing is to at least give me an ounce of respect that I've faced real life and death situations, not just tournament stuff. I never picked a fight with somebody in a bar, right? I have faced down monsters, the worst, evilest, most violent people in society. And I'm here to still talk about it. And I think that will bring an inkling of credibility. So I hope like you can take some of the things that you're saying and like apply them, you know, to your training or whatnot. I certainly don't know it all. And if somebody says something like real critical, like, I don't know how to do a headlock. Well, you know what? Maybe someday, like you'll show me what you know, and I'm going to have the humility to say like, I don't know it all, and I'm not going to fight with you or, you know, be critical. That's all a waste of time, man. But I will say too, man, if you're a person that says some harsh things or, you know, thinks, you know, says things harshly before you're really thinking about it, take a minute. You're going to get so much out of it by being constructive. Like just handle it constructively and you're going to be okay. And if you apply that in every facet of your life, you're going to see like amazing results, man. Like think of something like think of your worst attribute, like something you know you need to work on, and we all do, including myself, and go, what if I didn't do that for a year? What if I did? Where would I be if I didn't do that for a year? You'd probably be like better off, because at the end of the day, one thing martial arts will teach you is we can be our own worst enemy. And the biggest opponent is the one we're looking at in the mirror.
Amen. Amen to that. Well, I think we had a really good discussion today. Mark, do you want to plug anything? I know you do. Where can people find you and potentially train with you?
Okay, so just keep an eye on like our Instagram. It's House of Jean Jacques Machado. And then we're going to come on board doing some seminars. And so like, we'll do like wrestling for BJJ or whatever. And so we usually do like a 3-hour thing.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, sometimes I do it for free. Sometimes I do it for cost. We're in Simi Valley, which is in Ventura County. But Simi Valley is like really close to Los Angeles. It's on the 118 freeway, just past Chadsworth. So I'm like the first or second exit. So what I'll say is this, and then I'll also say this, because of the influence of Jean Jacques,
Okay.
you can go train at any Machado Academy. There's an affiliation. You can find the affiliates. It's run by Jay Zabalos, who's an amazing human being and jiu-jitsu practitioner. The Machado organization, they exist lots of parts in the world. They're redoing some of their like website and affiliation stuff right now, but keep an eye on it. And then finally, I want to say it's really important to support guys like Adam. He's helping me get the word out.
Thank you.
But also too, like this is a good thing. Like he's got such a wide base of like people out there. So, you know, I know they do their little things, Patreon and like extra bonus. I don't know if you do any of that stuff, but hey, look, any way like you can support him, and that's maybe by likes or whatever. Like I'll ask you this. Is the internet, the world of martial arts and whatnot better with or without Adam's work? And I think it's better.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me.
I'm not a big social media guy. So like my own Instagram, all this stuff, guys do it for me. And I could tell you, to help get my word out, like your videos that you did in the reels and stuff, man, a lot of people like looked at them, and you know what happened? People I hadn't talked to in a long time called me.
Really?
Sent me a text, and they were like, "Hey, man, like, you know, like, hey, I saw
awesome.
this, like, I was thinking about you and whatnot." And you know what? That's important, because the connectivity and it's important not only for the academy, because I'm a pencil and pad guy, you know. I went to school a long time ago. I'm an older guy. Like I was totally matriculated and in a different type of system that exists today. And I'm not like, I think that honestly, social media and stuff, like there's a lot of nonsense and garbage on it, and a lot more could be used for good. But what I'm trying to do is like learn it to be an advantage. If you look at my Instagram, if you look at anything that I do, I will never say anything negative about anybody. And it's all about book recommendations, how to make yourself like a better person and whatnot. And you know what's crazy? That's after 30 years of policing and going to hell and back. And I've decided that I will be a positive person. You know what I mean? And I'm going to use martial arts as like a platform to help other people. So, you know, that's where I'm at, man. But listen, support Adam. And he didn't tell me to say that, but I sat down with this people. This guy is hilarious, man. And it is a funny show. Like the difference is like, you see some of the stuff, they're like so serious. Like he has a sense of humor and whatnot. We all learn better with humor. So I'm just going to say thank you, man. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. And I do actually recommend everyone go and follow Mark, because I see you're starting to put out content and you've got so much, like we've not even scratched the surface with this, with the two videos.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Let me just tell you one thing. So 3 years ago, I bought a building. And so I was like, hey, like as a businessman, I went, hey man, I want this to work. So I purchased the building, and my security work allowed me to pay that building off. And so the building's paid for, everything in there's paid for. I own it all outright. And I knew I could do what I wanted to do. And that was to be true to teach the way I wanted to. In other words, I don't have to pimp myself out or bastardize myself. I'm going to do what's right. And I'm going to have the type of students that are right and have the right mindset. So one of the things I did, and everyone was like, you're crazy. I said, I'm going to have no social media, no website, nothing. I'm going to open the door and see who comes. And And so I'll tell you one story. This guy walks in, this little scrappy dude named Russo. So me and my boy TJ, who's a big bad SWAT cop, we're working out in the weight room. I got a weight room in my academy. We're in there like lifting. This guy walks in, he goes, "Hey man, I used to be with Jean Jacques. I don't remember." He goes, "Yeah, man, no, I was there." Like, I was like, "Ask Marcel, like he'll know me, he'll vouch for me." And I go, "Okay, man, like, what can we do for you?" He goes, "Man, it's like, man, like I'm training at this other place and like, it's a joke, man. Like, it's so watered down." But I go, "Okay, man, well, like nobody told you to go over there. Why don't you go back to headquarters?" "Well, I live out here, whatever, man." I go, "Hey, bud, but I'll be honest with you, man. I don't know if you'll fit in here. And we're not really open to the public right now." And he puts his head down and he walks out. We go back to our work and this guy walks in, determined. "Didn't you, Russo? You were determined." And he goes like this. He goes, "Hell no, man. You guys are trying to kick me out of here?" He's like, "Hell no. This is where I need to be. If you guys are trying to throw me out of here, this is definitely the academy like I need to be at, man. So I'm not taking no for an answer." Like, "All right, man. Like, give me your phone number. I'll send you the schedule." Guy's been a great student now for like over a year or so. But what I did is I said, I'm not advertising. I'm not putting it out. I'm gonna just like let by word of mouth and reputation. And you know what? It worked. So you don't need to be spinning on your head or saying outrageous things, bragging about yourself or your academy or this and that.
Yeah.
Because I prove you can just open up the doors and they're going to come on in. Because they will. Because the cream always rises to the top. What I do, I will say this in all honesty, is that nobody does what I do. Because I do wrestling, judo, and integrate it into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So my system is very different. But if you know anything about wrestling, it's physical. So my Jiu-Jitsu game is a physical game. It's a physical game.
Right. Well,
not slinky.
I think you people should definitely follow you for just all the positive messages you have.
It's going to be positive. It's going to be positive.
Yes. So, and they could follow you, like you said, at the House of Jean Jacques Machado on Instagram, right?
Yeah, and then I have my own Mark Mireles, Markmireles. That's my personal Instagram. Like I do some jiu-jitsu on there, but then the list me there as an academic self-defense instructor, retired police officer, and I am an academic. When I finished at the police department, I went through grad school, and now I'm in a PhD program. I got a degree, my undergraduate criminal justice, my master's is in security management, and now I'm in a split doctoral program between criminal justice and homeland security. And so definitely the dumbest guy in the class. And I'm like, citations. You know, I did that. I'll tell you this. When I was doing my dissertation for my master's, I quoted myself out of my books, Street Stoppers and Fighting in the Clinch. I took it and put it in my final dissertation as quotes. And so I actually quoted myself in my own education system. So I guarantee that's like a first, man. You're quoting yourself through published books. Yeah, so.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mark. I'm going to head off tomorrow. I'll be in LA. I'm going to be training with Vince Cesare. He's going to show me some old school jiu-jitsu. So I think it might be a fun follow-up to your video.
I don't want to like leak out anything, but we talked about some of the guys you're going to have on the show. Super excited. I'm not going to say anything.
Oh, okay.
Like, you know how it is, but can I say one that I was excited that you're going to do? Because you can edit it out. So I was super excited to hear that you're setting something up through one of your acquaintances with John Hackleman. Is that still a go? Or?
Yeah, we're still talking to John. Yeah.
Let me tell you, Russell Peters, the comedian, well-known, celebrity, A-lister. He's got, he's living up in this very ritzy area, and he invited me because he's a Jean Jacques to his birthday party. So anytime he invites me to a party, I'm usually come from work, and like all his friends are like famous celebrities. I went to like one of his New Year's parties. He had like Crazy Legs cologne and like all these dudes. Like he's up there at the turn, and they're like, "Who are you, man?" Like who are? I'm like, "I'm nobody, man. I'm Russell's friend from Jiu-Jitsu, man." So every time. So anyway, we went up to a party, and it was Michael J. White, Chuck Liddell, the guys that did like No Surrender, No Retreat, the movie, that like one of the young actors. And so we were all talking about, martial arts, and we were sitting by the pool. And so two things with that, because it's really like how people think, right? So I said, man, dude, like I know Hackleman was a nurse, and I know he lived in Woodland Hills, and we're right next to Woodland Hills where they're at. I go, and I patrolled there. And many times I thought while I was patrolling, where was Hackleman's school at? Because I know it was in his backyard. And so I met these guys, like some rough dudes, like that were part of like gangs, and they were bounty hunters, or they were gangs, or sometimes they were both. And they trained with Hackleman. They would go, yeah, man, it was like over like in. So for years, but nobody could tell me where Hackleman lived, like in Woodland Hills. So I told you, I go, man, I want to know like where the house is, right? So one of the things when I worked like West Valley is this Seven Seas is on Satakoy from Karate Kid. Miyagi's house is over by Quimby Park, So like I'd see all these places famous in martial arts. So anyway, so that was the first thing about like Hackleman. I asked Chuck, I said, dude, like, how did you guys get so badass? He goes, dude, it was the training, man. Like, so Hackleman moved from the valley to like up where he did up by San Luis Obispo. And that's where he met Chuck Liddell as a boy. And Chuck was going, dude, we do some crazy things. Like it'd be like 5-on-5, like with gloves on, like gang fighting stuff. And like, he was like, dude, he trained all these wild like encounters, and that way Hackleman used to train them. And then I heard this podcast, man, Hackleman, like it's going to be golden for you, because he discussed in Honolulu this Hawaiian guy that ended up teaching him karate. And the guy, he was involved in like what would be known as like I don't know if he was in the black shorts, but he was involved in like Hawaiian criminal activity. And Hackleman's relationship with him, and it was such, like, he's a good talker, and he talked about like all his experiences in Hawaii and how he got into what was known as Hawaiian Kempo, and like how that came to be. He's an amazing speaker. So like I hope you lock that down. But anyway, with Michael J. White, who trained at Big John, so I had met Michael before, but all these like celebs are there. So we're talking about, because Chuck Liddell wrestled at Cal Luis Obispo, right? He wrestled there. He was a backup, right? And I'm a little older than him. No, I think we're the same age. I think he was in the program while I was in the program at Iowa. And so we're talking, and so I start talking about the University of Iowa, and I start talking about Dan Gable and some stories about Dan Gable and my experiences. So some of the stories while I was there, like I was there when the Brands brothers came on their recruiting trip. There's this story where, Barry Davis got locked up, like he was going to make weight, and they had to chase him down in town. There's all these stories that like are recited. There's some stories, man, like you can't even tell publicly, obviously, but like imagine a wrestling room, and it was like crazy. And so I started telling stories about Dan Gable. I was like, the thing about like Gable, and I was telling stories about guys in the room, like, Rico Chiapparelli was involved in like MMA. He was in that. He was national wrestling champion, but he was at Iowa. And then, there's this guy, like he was like tough wrestler. I was like, hey, where did this guy come from? Oh, he doesn't even wrestle. He's just a doctor. We had him move in with us in the dorms. He'd never even trained before. We taught him this. And that was like one of my great lessons, that if you take someone in 4 years and you show them everything right with no mistakes, they'll be pretty badass. This guy was like a senior or a first year medical student. He was in the room wrestling. He had never wrestled before these guys brought him to wrestling practice. So I was telling these stories, and what I realized, I looked around, here's these celebs, man, UFC champion, actor, all these people. I'm a nobody policeman sitting there telling them stories about Dan Gable. they were all like mesmerized, just like listening. It's about 30 minutes, but they'd say they were just like listening. Because even to those guys, Dan Gable was a icon deity, man. You know what I mean? So
wow.
That's a real experience, a real story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like I said, you've got so much. We've got to do another one of these soon, because like we barely scratched the surface with you. Like you've got just decades and decades of cool stories to tell, and all the people you meet. Like, so let's definitely set up another one of these soon.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. And like I said, everyone out there, let martial arts training be a vehicle to holistically affect your life and stay positive, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.